Hey listeners, so how are you all? Thanks for joining our small corner of manhwa, so get your headphones and be ready to dive in another world of manhwas. So today we are gonna watch In World of Magic I Survive with Pure Strength. Part 4 out of 4. So let's move on to story. Damn it, I've wasted too much time. While passing through several houses, I kept chasing after Naru. I had to be a bit more cautious this time. I didn't want to suddenly bump into another cat-eared ninja like before. Because of that, it took me longer than I expected. Every now and then, I moved along the main road, but unlike earlier, no more earthen walls sprang up to block my path. Looks like those wall-building guys finally gave up. Or maybe they just ran out of mana. Creak. When I stepped out of the door of yet another house, I found myself right in front of the same warehouse from before. Figures. After all that, I'd basically gone in a big circle and ended up right back where I started. The difference from earlier was obvious now. There were thunderclouds gathering overhead, crackling ominously. And right beneath them, there was Naru, standing there, waiting for me. Occasionally, streaks of violet lightning would snake across the dim ground, blasting nearby crates and barrels into splinters. My hair's standing on end. Is this static electricity? This was nothing like the lightning magic Naru usually used. Without that bracelet holding her back, her power was on a whole different level. I could feel it. This was bad news. The crackling in the air was setting off every warning instinct in my body. Looks like she's all set to fight back. Well, that's way better than having her run off. What I was most worried about was Naru escaping outside the settlement. Chasing after her in the middle of the night. Yeah, I've got no skills for that. Still, what the hell is that lightning crackling all around Naru? No way I'm getting close like this. Just to test it, I grabbed a nearby wooden crate with my right hand and hurled it straight at Naru. As expected, it didn't even get close. The crackling purple lightning around her shredded it to pieces midair. You're so persistent. You know, they say clingy guys aren't popular. Yo you. ND. No W. Having confirmed my presence, Naru swung down her left prosthetic arm right at me. Lightning bolt. A pillar of blinding light crashed down from the sky onto the house I'd just exited. A brief pause, then a deafening thunderclap roared, shaking the ground beneath me, rivaling the explosions I'd heard at the front gate. It was truly a strike faster than sound itself, a lightning assault. A gaping hole was left in the house's roof, black smoke rising in thin, curling tendrils. Damn it, she can attack and defend at the same time. That's cheating. Amazing. Incredible. As expected of the rare lightning magic. Honestly speaking, am I the strongest? Amazing. So strong. The best. Yeah, I'll admit it is impressive. Naru rarely used her lightning magic because she was scared of it. But now I can see just how powerful it is when used properly, an offensive and defensive force all in one. Even considering her timid personality as a drawback, it's no wonder the Night Order was so eager to recruit her. But still, you're not the strongest one here. It's Naru who's amazing. It just doesn't sit right with me seeing some puppet master acting all smug when it's Naru doing all the work. Hey, too bad. Right now, this girl's just my puppet. Which means I'm the amazing one. That's right, I am amazing. Man, this is seriously pissing me off. Part of me really wants to just charge in, rely on my magic resistance, grab that damn puppet stuck on her arm, and crush it with my bare hand. But that lightning, if I can't nullify it with my magic resistance, I'm 100% dead. That's not exactly the kind of thing I wanna test on a whim. Guess I should play it safe and wait for Naru to run out of mana while hitting her from a distance, but the only ranged attack I've got is Muscle Magic Tornado. Every time I use that damn Muscle Magic Tornado, it messes me up so bad I swear I'm never using it again. And yet, somehow, I end up using it every time. But honestly, the only ranged attacks I've got are either that or throwing rocks. Wait, isn't this the perfect chance to develop a new muscle magic technique? Long range something for long range attacks, huh? Yeah, with all the muscle training I've been doing, maybe it's about time I could start shooting ki or something, right? Focus the energy within my body and release it toward the enemy. It was a classic technique in any battle manga. Maybe I could thrust it out with both hands while yelling, ha! Or maybe I could fire it like a bullet from my fingertip. There was even the method of gathering energy from all over the world and dropping it from the sky. Come to think of it, magic and ki are basically the same thing, right? They're both energies that flow through the body. Maybe they just have different names, but at the core, they're actually the same thing. If that's the case, then with all this overflowing magic, no, ki that I've built up, I should totally be able to force it out of my body somehow. Even if I can't convert magic into fire or ice. If I can just release it as raw energy and blast it at my enemy. That should totally count as a legitimate attack, right? Of course, directing it properly at my target is probably gonna be tricky. But hey, that's what my muscle power is for. Alright, let's give it a shot. I lowered my stance deeply, bent both arms, and focused my strength. I visualized the invisible energy ki gathering from within my body into my right hand. Someone once said magic is all about imagination. From my gut to my chest, then through my right arm, all the way to my palm. I could feel something hot, some kind of power slowly gathering at the very tip of my body. U-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-O-H. With all my might, I hurled the gathered magic or maybe ki from my right palm straight toward Naru. Take this, muscly Breaker. Whoosh. Pain shot through my right fingertips, the blood had surged to the ends from swinging my arm too fast. Be careful, so me thing is coming. TCH, what crazy fighting spirit. But no matter what comes my way, there's no way it can break through my lightning barrier. Naru gathered the crackling purple lightning around her, focusing it directly in front of her like a makeshift shield. She raised her artificial arm toward the sky, ready to unleash a lightning counterattack at any moment. Her eyes widened, bracing herself for the incoming invisible attack. But no matter how long she waited, no sign of any magical phenomenon appeared. Question mark. Ha yeah, I figured as much, yep, nothing. Totally dead. Only the sound of my heavy breathing echoed awkwardly through the area. Thought, after all that intensity, it didn't even activate. What the heck, is he broken? Hey now, failure's just part of the process, alright. This is actually a valuable discovery. I just found out I can't use ki yet. Open hollow corner bracket. Anyone who has never made a mistake has never tried anything new. Albert Einstein. Unfortunately, it looks like using ki is still way too early for a guy like me who can't even use magic. But thanks to this failure, I've made up my mind. Guess I don't have a choice. As much as I hate to admit it, really hate to. Looks like I'm gonna have to use tornado. However, even if I've resolved myself to use tornado, there's still one big problem. This is inside the settlement. The ground here's been leveled nice and flat. Scooping up dirt isn't gonna be easy. Sure, there are some small stones lying around. But pebbles like that wouldn't even scratch that violet lightning barrier of hers. Guess that means regular old clumps of dirt would only work as a distraction at best. I glanced around again, looking for something I could throw over and over. Something strong enough that Naru had to use her magic to defend against. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a rope lying near a shed. Probably the rope that had been used to tie up livestock. Must have gotten blown off when Naru's lightning went wild and wrecked the area. I couldn't help but rush over and pick it up. It was thick, probably used to tie down cattle or horses. The end was tapered a bit to make it easier to secure to a post, but that didn't matter. It was about as thick as a tug-of-war rope you'd see at a school sports festival. But to me, it didn't feel like some once-a-year event equipment. No, this was something way more familiar. This is a battle rope. A battle rope, one of the many tools you'd find at a gym. It's a simple yet brutal piece of training equipment. Two long, heavy ropes anchored at one end, which you whip and slam in rhythmic waves. To build total body strength, endurance, and coordination. A true masterpiece of functional fitness. I grabbed the thicker end of the rope and, just to test it out, swung it down hard like a whip. With a heavy smack, the rope struck the ground. And just like a snake rippling through the dirt, the force traveled clean through its length, snapping the tip against the earth with a sharp crack. Phew, feels perfect. It fits right in my hands. I never thought I'd get to wield a battle rope again in this world. Unfortunately, I only managed to find a single rope. But hey, that'll do just fine. Alright, get ready. This time for sure you're gonna taste my brand new muscle magic. Muscle magic? What the heck are you gonna do with a rope like that? Yeah, I bet it's just for show again. Gripping the rope tightly in both hands, I raised it high above my head. And with all my might, I slammed it down onto the ground right in front of me. Go, muscle magic, rope slam. Bashing. The rope, slammed down with every ounce of strength I had, struck the hard ground with a thunderous impact. Chunks of earth burst apart, scattering dirt and debris everywhere. But that wasn't all, not even close. The terrifying part was that the shockwave didn't just stop there. It traveled down the length of the rope, rippling in massive waves, surging straight toward the tip. It tore up the earth, shattered stone, and shook the very air itself. Whoa wah! Caught off guard by the unexpected attack, Naru froze in shock. The rope, rising higher than her own height like a towering wave, surged forward like a tsunami. Crushing through the barrier of violet lightning, the roaring rope swept past Naru's side with unstoppable force. Pang! Right after that, a sharp crack echoed behind Naru's left side. The tapered end of the massive rope driven by my muscle power had produced the same effect as a whip. That's right, the tip of the rope had broken the sound barrier. This dry, gunshot-like sound wasn't caused by the rope hitting something. It was a sonic boom, produced when the tip of the rope broke the sound barrier and sliced through the air. In other words, yeah, my muscle magic completely missed. That was on purpose. I mean, come on. There's no way I can hit Naru directly with something this powerful, right? Her head would probably explode or something seriously. Then why didn't I hold back, you ask? Easy. Because as a true trainee, I need to know my own limits. What are you? The ground where the rope gouged through looked like a massive fissure. Anyone who hadn't witnessed this would probably assume it was the aftermath of some advanced earth magic. Judging by how the puppet creator wasn't launching a counterattack. Even though I was well within the range of lightning magic. It seemed that my muscle magic, rope slam, had left quite the impression on him. Is that really magic? That's right, it's a brand new muscle magic technique. Hey, what's the matter? You're totally freaked out, aren't you? You're so scared you forgot to use Naru to talk. I am possible. I am a puppet. I know no fear. Lightning bolt HYAA. Thud. Just as Naru hastily swung down her left hand, as if suddenly remembering to attack, her legs shot up into the air. And with a clumsy tumble, she fell flat on her back, canceling the spell. Oh dear, you're not handling that ultimate lightning magic very well at all. What a waste of power. Curse it, curse it, curse it. As for what just happened, this time, instead of swinging the rope vertically like before, I whipped it side to side. The result, the rope slithered across the ground like a giant snake, snagging Naru's feet right out from under her. The only way to dodge this would be to jump over the rope again and again like you're skipping in place. But there's no way you can keep staring at the ground in the middle of a fight. And on top of that, if you're constantly distracted by a rope slithering around your feet, there's no way you can focus enough to control your magic properly, let alone go on the offensive. This is muscle magic, snake wave. And on top of that, this muscle magic technique trains the deltoid muscle, specifically the middle head. By swinging your arms low and wide over and over. Yelp, damn it, this worthless rope. The rope kept smacking Nar's legs again and again as she desperately tried to stand. I was holding back a little, so it shouldn't be enough to break any bones, but still, after taking that many hits to the legs, she could barely stay standing. And of course, there was no way she had the time or focus to counterattack. I didn't give her any chance to fire off her magic. I kept sweeping her legs while training myself at the same time. Truly killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Amazing. Battle ropes are insane. The versatility is off the charts. The only problem was the load was so intense I couldn't keep it up for long. 2 minutes. That was my limit. Time out. I'm done, I can't do this anymore. As expected of the battle rope, a tool designed to efficiently train the whole body. The fatigue it brings is no joke. In just a few short minutes, sweat was pouring from every inch of my body like a waterfall. Fortunately, it looked like Naru was just as exhausted from getting knocked down so many times there hadn't been any counterattacks yet. But that's when I realized the fatal flaw of the battle rope technique. Crap, if I don't let her fire off her spells, she won't run out of mana. The continuous attacks from the battle rope had been way too effective. I hadn't given Naru a single chance to fight back. What a disaster. The whole point of using a ranged attack was to drain her mana, but I'd gotten so caught up enjoying the battle rope after so long. Rope slam has too much power, I'd end up blasting Naru into oblivion. Snake wave is way too one-sided, she doesn't even get a chance to fight back. Man, this battle rope's just too strong. They say, the greater contains the lesser, but power without control is a tricky thing to handle. Maybe with enough practice, I could use rope slam to knock down just that puppet without hitting Naru. But not now, no way, I'd definitely end up doing something I can't take back. But no worries, there are still plenty of exercises I can do with a battle rope. Alright, Time to go back to basics. Alternate wave it is. I'll keep messing with Naru using this and slowly drain her mana. Alternate wave is a training method where you use 2 ropes to create vertical waves by moving your arms up and down alternately. But right now, I only have 1 rope, so it just turns into a simple exercise of shaking the rope up and down. Unlike the rope slam from earlier, where I swung it down from overhead, this one focuses on creating lots of small waves by making quick, short arm movements. Muscle magic alternate wave. Ta sha ta sha ta sha ta ha. With a pleasant, rhythmic tempo, I shook the rope up and down, creating waves about waist high as I moved them sideways toward Naru. Even with an attack this simple, maybe because of the earlier leg sweeps, Naru was desperately trying to blast the rope with her magic. I wonder how much mana Naru actually has. Honestly, I could probably only keep this up for about 2 minutes before my arms gave out again. Hollow diamond, I just don't get it at all. This situation was unlike anything Neburos had ever encountered before, completely outside any pattern of behavior he'd experienced. He was utterly confused. Normally, when someone runs into an acquaintance who's suddenly attacking them, there's only 2 patterns: either they try to stop them or they run away. But that guy, from the very first moment, he's been going at me like he's dead set on killing me. What the hell's up with that? Neburos had always preferred a method that minimized risk to himself, turning someone close to his target into a puppet and having them do the attacking. By doing so, his enemies would hesitate to fight back, shackled by their emotions. And above all, watching those faces, twisted in despair, as they were slaughtered helplessly by the hands of someone they cared about. That was what brought him the greatest joy. But this man was different. Even after raging like a wild beast back in the warehouse, he charged at the puppet Naru without a hint of hesitation, as if taking a hostage meant nothing to him. And on top of that, this magic, or whatever it was. He'd picked up a livestock rope lying around and was swinging it like a lunatic, and yet that absurdly simple act came crashing down with ridiculous destructive power. Just like that guy said, even though I'm controlling one of the strongest forms of magic, lightning, I can't make use of it at all. It's so damn frustrating. Puppet, if that rope is gone, fine then. Lightning bolt. Zdoom, Zdoom. Once again, bolts of lightning rained down on the rope, which was approaching while creating smaller waves than before. However, due to its very nature, lightning was notoriously difficult to control precisely. Striking a moving, wave-like rope was no easy task. Damn it, this magic is so hard to control, it won't listen to me at all. Neburos had the ability to use the magic of those he turned into puppets. However, the power, control, and types of spells available all depended on the original owner. In Naru's case, she had always been reluctant to use lightning magic, so her control over it was far from refined. That's it. The problem is trying to target the rope directly. If I just blast this whole area with a wide area spell, that'll settle everything. Now unleash your greatest magic. The puppet whispered to Naru, egging her on. This puppet Naru is valuable, sure, but honestly, I'm just getting tired of this whole mess. Who cares anymore? Normally, when a mage casts a wide area spell, they make sure they're well outside the blast zone. But this time, the designated area was centered around Naru herself, a suicidal move that completely disregarded that common sense. With vacant eyes, Naru raised both hands and began muttering a spell under her breath. Her voice was faint, her chant slower than usual. Perhaps that was her heart resisting, even if just a little. Countless bolts of lightning began to form within the thunderclouds overhead. The spell Naru was trying to cast wasn't anything special. It was simple. She just kept chanting lightning bolt, creating one after another without releasing them, letting them build up inside the clouds instead. But its effect was overwhelming. Have you ever heard of a curse called Kodoku Gudu? It's an abominable curse. You place hundreds of poisonous insects and small animals, creatures with venomous stingers or powerful fangs, into a single container and force them to devour each other. And in the end, the lone survivor becomes the Kodoku Gudu, a living curse used to kill your enemies. That was exactly what this was. A Kodoku Gudu ritual using thunder dragons. The lightning dragons continued to multiply, each one born within the confined black clouds only to devour another, feeding on each other, growing larger and more powerful with every clash. What set this apart from a typical Kodoku Gudu ritual was simple. Unlike insects, lightning didn't lose its energy when devoured. Instead, its vast power was inherited, passed down from one dragon to the next, not through consumption, but through assimilation. Eventually, the energy accumulated within the storm burst forth, obliterating its nest, its womb, the thundercloud itself. And what appeared in its place was a colossal sphere, glowing like a third moon hanging in the night sky. Localized wide area spell Emperor of Thunder, Indra. The massive sphere crackled with purple electricity, sparking wildly like the core of an enormous sparkler. And when that swirling mass of lightning eventually fell dropping like a fire starter from the heavens, it wouldn't just obliterate the caster. Enemy, ally, the entire settlement, nothing would likely survive in its wake. A thin trickle of blood ran from Naru's nose, dripping down to the ground. The terrifying thing about this spell was that its power increased the more it was layered. To unleash it on this scale required an enormous amount of mana as its price. Without someone like Beal, a man known even within the Sashu kingdom for his overwhelming mana reserves, it would be impossible to wield a wide area spell of this magnitude. So then how had Naru, who didn't possess an especially large amount of mana, managed to amplify Emperor of Thunder, Indra, to such an overwhelming level? Normally, when a person exceeds their limit and releases too much mana, a natural safety mechanism kicks in to protect their life, causing symptoms like nausea, dizziness, or in severe cases, unconsciousness. However, because Naru was currently in a hypnotized state, that limiter wasn't functioning at all. She was recklessly pouring even the mana necessary for sustaining her own life into powering up the spell. Ahahaha, amazing, amazing, everyone disappear forever. The teardrop that fell from Naru's vacant eyes slowly mixed into the pool of blood at her feet, fading away without a trace. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Guston and his group. Whoosh, whoosh. A faint slicing sound cut through the darkness. By the time Guston snapped his head up in response, it was already over. The black spikes had been deflected by a pale blue ice shield that had been set up in advance. With a sharp clink, the spikes fell harmlessly to the ground. Guston glanced down at the black iron needles scattered around his feet. A chill ran down his spine. Even though he'd been fully alert, maintaining his vigilance in all directions, he hadn't sensed the incoming attack at all. If Crimea hadn't blocked it with her ice shield, that needle would have been buried deep in my neck. To think I, of all people, would end up being protected by a commoner. The very person I was supposed to protect had saved me instead. And not just any commoner. Crimea was from an orphanage. Among the official knights, Guston always looked down on those like Crimea and Ert, who had grown up in orphanages. He often resented why the commander had gone out of his way to place people of such low birth in his squad. And yet the reality was that he had no choice but to rely on her. For someone like Guston, a staunch believer in noble supremacy, this situation was nothing short of humiliating. But there was no point in clinging to pride when he lacked the means to deal with the threat himself. Come on, keep moving, or you're gonna get skewered. Crimea said it like it was nothing. But spotting those black spikes flying at them in this darkness, that was next to impossible. Why? How is she able to see the position of those black spikes in this darkness? It wasn't just herself she was defending. Crimea was also protecting those around her. Guston couldn't hide his astonishment. Hey, Jork, if you could use detection magic like you do, would you be able to see those attacks? Nah, not really. There's barely any magic packed into those tiny spikes. Even if I could see them, dodging would still be pretty tough, you know. Those black, needle-thin spikes moved with terrifying speed. By the time you saw them, they were already buried somewhere in your body. In other words, if you could see them, it was already too late. Icicle, tch, what a pain in the ass, woman. The man twisted his body to its absolute limit on instinct. A thick icicle, in stark contrast to the thin black spikes, grazed the man's side and stabbed into the ground. Even as his posture faltered, the man immediately attempted a counterattack. After all, right after casting a spell was when a mage was most vulnerable. Black iron needle, ice shield, pa shfft. Clang. A faint firing sound. Black spikes shot toward every vital point, his eyes, throat, and thighs. Yet the incoming projectiles were blocked flawlessly by ice shields, as if the timing had been perfectly coordinated. Ice shield, way too freakin' fast. Tch, what is she, some kind of future seer or something? Normally, when a mage attacks, you can tell where they're aiming if you watch 'em close enough, their eyes, their hands, or whatever chant they're using, to trigger the spell. But this man didn't have any of that, or rather, he did. He was simply using the cover of night and the darkness of the forest to their fullest, perfectly concealing the moment he cast his spells. On top of that, he had scattered iron sand infused with mana all around the area, making it impossible to even guess where he would cast his next spell. His misleading way of talking, his deliberate glances used as feints just like Alba and the others had warned them, this man was clearly a seasoned veteran with plenty of real combat experience. Listen up, Crimea warned. Spells like those black iron needles low-power spells always aim straight for your vital spots. The eyes or throat to stop you from casting magic. And the thighs, there's a big artery running through them. If it's cut, you'll lose too much blood to move, so watch out. And yet, Crimea wasn't just dodging the attacks of such a seasoned fighter with ease. She was defending others. She was counter-attacking. And on top of that, she still had the composure to give out advice in the middle of battle. Even someone like Houston, prideful to a fault, had no choice but to acknowledge her skill. So this is the true strength of a full-fledged knight. I'm nothing but a burden. Crimea spoke to Guston and Jork, who were completely unable to deal with the man's attacks, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Don't bother trying to follow them with your eyes. Just think, if it were you, where would you strike from, how would you do it, and when would you go for the kill? Hey, so you're saying I gotta put myself in the enemy's shoes or something? Jork asked. Well, yeah, I guess it's kinda like that, Crimea replied with a casual nod. In reality, the man was reading Guston and Jorcy's movements to launch his attacks, but Crimea was simply reading one step ahead of him. It was precisely because she had grown up setting traps since childhood that Crimea could so clearly understand the mindset of the one laying them. She had completely anticipated the next attack the man was about to unleash. With enough real combat experience, they might one day catch up to Crimea, but for now, that was simply asking too much of them. Easy for you to say. Even so, Gustain clenched his teeth and desperately tried to join the fight between Crimea and the man, but damn it, I'm too close to them. Gustain had been watching for an opening to attack for a while now. But no matter how he moved, there was never a chance to unleash his wide area blast magic because the man kept maintaining just the right distance from him at all times. When Gustain and the others attacked the wall earlier, that was when the man realized there was a blast mage among them. That was precisely why he had chosen to force a close quarters fight. Blast magic was powerful, but if the distance was too short, the caster risked being caught in their own explosion, and the man clearly knew it. On the other hand, the man's magnetic magic showed its true power at close range. Alright then, seems like things are getting pretty noisy around the settlement. Guess it's about time we wrap this up. The man said with a lazy roll of his neck. Guston's eyes had finally adjusted to the darkness. He could now make out the black spikes more clearly than before. As he cautiously scanned his surroundings, he realized just how bad their current situation really was. This is the countless black spikes they had been desperately dodging, deflecting, and knocking away were now floating in the air, completely surrounding the three of them. Well then, I've sown enough seeds for now. No way you guys can dodge this many black iron needles. He created black spikes from iron sand. He launched them with magnetic repulsion. That simple process repeated, again, and again. Before they knew it, the number of spikes had long since surpassed 20 or 30. And now, all of them were waiting. Suspended in the air. Held perfectly in place by the delicate balance of magnetic attraction and repulsion. Waiting in silence, for the man's signal, and the moment that right hand came swinging down. Those spikes would tear through the air from every direction, aiming straight for Guston and his comrades. Hey look, Guston, this is bad, real bad. I can see it too. We're surrounded by spikes. No, that's not what I mean. Over there, Big Bro's in trouble. Jork pointed at the night sky. There was something up there, something that shouldn't exist. A third moon. It was slowly, silently emerging from deep within the thunderclouds. Guston had mistakenly believed that his eyes had simply adjusted to the darkness, allowing him to see the black spikes more clearly, but that wasn't the case. At some point, the thunderclouds covering the sky had begun to clear, and in their place, an enormous glowing sphere so bright it could be mistaken for a third moon had appeared overhead. Its steadily growing radiance illuminated the entire area above the settlement, stripping the black spikes of their advantage of blending into the shadows. Is that lightning magic? That girl in your squad, was she capable of casting such a large-scale spell? Guston demanded. Nah, this is the first time I've seen it too. Naru's kinda amazing, huh? Jork replied, scratching his head. Hey, Guston, you think we're screwed too if that thing comes down? If lightning of that magnitude struck the ground? Lightning, by its nature, causes far more widespread damage when it hits open ground rather than tall structures like trees or lightning rods. Most likely, the moment that glowing sphere dropped, the entire settlement and everyone within it would be incinerated in an instant. Nothing would be left behind. Not even a single blade of grass. That thing's already way past the size she can control, right? At this rate, it might just go boom and explode before she even gets to cast it. What should we do? For the first time, Crimmia's usual confident smile faded. Even she couldn't hide her unease. It seemed that not even Crimmia could stop a spell of that scale. Hey, are you guys even aware of your situation? This really isn't the time to be worrying about something over there. The man sounded slightly irritated, clearly not pleased with how Crimmia was completely unfazed despite being surrounded by his black spikes. Crimmia shrugged with an exaggerated sigh. Oh, you mean these little spikes? Come on, pulling that smug face over such a basic trap anyone could come up with, that's just embarrassing. Ha, keep talkin', tough girl. If you really think you can get out of this, be my guest. Magnetic pull. The man swung his arm down. A swarm of black spikes charged all at once like a pack of wild boars breaking free from their reins. And yet those deadly spikes never reached the three of them. Earth wall. In the blink of an eye, a dome-shaped earthen wall rose up, completely shielding them from the incoming attack. What? Earth magic. Like a swarm of tiny fish going after bait, the black spikes rushed toward the dome-shaped earth wall, but the dome simply grew thicker and thicker, swallowing up each and every spike that tried to pierce it. Hollow diamond. What? Earth magic. The appearance of earth wall, a spell of earth magic, was something completely outside of Zore's expectations. It was true mages who could wield multiple types of magic were not uncommon. However, even in magic, there were such things as elemental compatibilities. For example, magic types that were similar like fire magic and explosion magic, or ice magic and water magic, were generally easier to learn together. On the other hand, combinations with opposing properties, such as fire magic and water magic, were commonly known to be much harder to master. It wasn't that learning opposing elements was impossible, just much more difficult. However, it was commonly believed that mixing conflicting abilities would weaken the overall power of one's spells. Ice magic and earth magic, for example, were not considered a particularly compatible combination. That was why earth magic had been completely outside of Zore's expectations. What the hell? It's not that woman, is it one of those brats? However, that question in Zore's mind was soon answered by a man who emerged from the forest. Perfect timing, Commander. Don't tell me you were watching from the shadows this whole time. From within the earth wall dome, Crimmia's muffled voice called out, and the man responded. Just for a bit HMPH, I'll leave this place to you, Crimmia. I'll handle that one. After a brief glance around, the man who had emerged from the forest seemed to grasp the situation. Without sparing more than a passing glance at Zore, who stood nearby, he began walking toward the settlement. Hey, now, don't just ignore me, that's cold, old man. Come on, have a little fun with me. Black thorns. 2 black thorns shot toward him. But the man didn't even look in Zore's direction. He swatted them away with nothing more than a casual wave of his hand. Sorry, but I've left you to Crimmia. Earth hammer. Gah! A dull impact struck his stomach. A lump of earth, generated at terrifying speed, smashed straight into Zore's gut. He generated that fast. Wait, that woman, she called him commander, didn't she? I see, so he's the commander of the Third Night Order. Beal the Annihilator. Zore hadn't missed it. The thing that had blocked his attack earlier was a small earth wall, barely the size of a human hand. Even if it was small, there were very few mages capable of generating an earth wall at that speed. But if the one he was facing was that Annihilator, then it all made sense. TCH, damn it. Guess I'll pull back for now. Fortunately for him, the Annihilator who had appeared from the forest didn't seem interested in Zore. And the other 3 were still inside the earth wall dome, making this the perfect chance to escape. Hesitation meant losing your chance. In unit warfare, where tactics and strategy played a central role, careful judgment was essential. But in one-on-one combat, especially in close quarters fighting, it was swift decisions and animal instinct that determined victory. However, despite Zore's quick decision, his body refused to follow. Wah, my legs, I can't move. He couldn't feel anything from the knees down. Looking down, he saw that his legs were frozen solid from his feet all the way up to his knees. Freeze bind. When the hell did she cast that? He hadn't noticed it at all. There had been no pain, no sign of anything unusual. Well, looks like the commander left this to me, so I'd better give it my best. Crimea stepped out from the earth wall dome, locking her sights on the immobilized Zoré. Crimea had no intention of restraining the man. People like him always had some kind of trick up their sleeve. Icicles formed with a sharp, cracking sound, aimed straight at Zoré's heart. He might have been able to dodge with a quick tilt of his head, but with his lower body frozen in place, moving his torso was impossible. Hey, wait, I'm just a mercenary hired for money. How about you guys hire me instead? Crimea turned a cold gaze toward him. A mercenary who switches sides for money, I wonder if that's worth anything at all. Hey, wait, I'm just a mercenary hired for money. How about you guys hire me instead? A mercenary who switches sides for money, I wonder if that's worth anything at all. Crimea formed a second icicle. The first was to pierce the man's heart and stop his movements. The second was to finish him off for good. Crimea clearly remembered what had happened during their previous battle with the Pakar soldiers. Because they had delayed confirming whether the enemy was dead, Ert had ended up in danger. Wait, hold on. Yeah, that's right, I've got intel. You guys came to rescue that lightning mage, right? Well, turns out there are still villagers left in that place. Even as she listened to the man's words, Crimea didn't stop forming the icicle. Hey, come on. Aren't you a little too uninterested? We're talking about citizens of your own kingdom here. Fine, how about this, there's still a baby left in that village. A baby. Crimea couldn't believe her ears. That was the last word she'd expected to hear. Yeah, a kid, barely 2 or 3 months old. Babies make great catalysts for puppet making, so we kept it alive for that. None of the other soldiers know about this. The orders were to kill everyone, after all. But me, I can lead you right to where that baby's being kept. A baby. Having grown up in an orphanage surrounded by countless brothers and sisters, Crimea instinctively reacted to that word and stopped forming the icicle. Got her. Zoré wasn't about to let that opening slip past him. Liar's iron. Zoré gathered all the iron sand he had been secretly collecting underground. And instantly clad his body in it. It was the same defensive magic he had used to repair the wall earlier. Though temporary, its durability had been proven strong enough to withstand the relentless attacks from Guston and his team. Seriously, did I just get tricked? Ice spear. Nah, I never lied. Magnetic pull. The moment he cast his spell, an incredible force yanked Zoré's body backward, pulling him straight toward the settlement. As a result, the ice spear Crimea had launched missed its target completely, gouging a deep scar into the ground instead. Wait, seriously, I didn't see that coming. Crimea had been bracing herself, fully expecting him to fight back using his reinforced defenses. Only to be completely caught off guard when he chose to run instead. Like hell, I'm gonna stay here and die. Zoré barreled through the forest, mowing down trees with his body. And crashed straight into the outer wall of the settlement, the very same one Guston's group had attacked earlier. Gah! Even though he had clad his armor in iron sand and used the repulsive force to lessen the impact, a violent shock still ran through his body. He could taste iron spreading in his mouth, a sign that some of his internal organs had taken damage. Damn, can't believe I screwed that up, didn't account for the extra weight. Always prepare an escape route. When Zoré had repaired the collapsed wall earlier, he had reinforced it with a large amount of iron sand to withstand attacks. And secretly imbued it with magnetic energy. By aligning the magnetic north pole of the wall with the magnetic south pole of his armor, he had created a powerful attraction force, allowing him to use it for an emergency escape. Hey, are you okay? Hearing the crash, 2 engineers rushed over and dragged Zoré, who was lying outside the wall, into the settlement. They carried him into a nearby house being used as a makeshift infirmary and roughly dropped him onto a simple bed. This leg's done for, I'm gonna need a prosthetic ASAP. Is Neburos still fighting? With that lightning going off, no one can get close. We've got no idea what's going on. Anyway, I'll go grab a healer right away. Can't have you dying on us here. Then hurry up and get one before I drop dead. Man, it's been a while since I felt this wiped out, I'm gonna get some sleep. Muttering to himself, Zoré closed his eyes, gently stroking his numb leg. Hollow diamond. Seriously, I let him get away. Crimea pounded on the earth wall dome in frustration. Watching her, Guston couldn't help but feel the weight of his own inadequacy. When he'd been surrounded by those black spikes, Guston hadn't thought about overcoming it with his own strength. Instead, somewhere in his heart, he'd relied on Crimea, on a commoner, simply because she was a full knight and expected to handle it. Still, I was only saved because Commander Beale happened to cover us with that earth wall. But did Crimea know he would come to help? If not, then what was with that confidence of hers back then? Why, right, that's totally where you'd fight back, isn't it? He went through all that trouble to beef up his defenses, and then ran away without taking a single hit. Yeah, but didn't he crash into like a dozen trees on the way out? No way a regular set of armor would have saved him from that, right? Before Gustin could finish his question, Crimea jumped in with her own completely unrelated complaint. And Jork, of course, went right along with her. Suppressing a slight frown, Gustin asked Crimea again. That's not what I'm asking. Crimea, did you come here with Commander Beale? Nope, but we've got a communication magic tool, you know. Super expensive one, too. Maybe if you guys become full knights someday, you'll get to use one. So that was it, the reason the earth wall had appeared at exactly the right moment. It must have been because Commander Beale had already finished the chant in advance. Even for him, generating an earth wall that quickly would have been impossible otherwise. Ha, so Crimea-san can use detection magic too, huh? I thought I was the only one. I couldn't tell if it was Commander Beale or not, but I knew there was someone nearby with crazy amounts of mana. Oh, you can use detection magic? That's impressive. Say things like that sooner, Jork. What if that crazy mana user had turned out to be an enemy? Still, what incredible coordination. It's almost as if they knew that situation was going to happen from the start. Magnetic magic that manipulates iron sand underground was a terrible match against earth magic. However, the moment the earth wall dome covered us, Crimea immediately coated the interior with ice. The ice wall wasn't strong enough to withstand the momentum of the black spikes flying at full speed. It would have been easily shattered. But at zero distance, blocking them became simple. If the heads of the black spikes couldn't launch properly, all they had to do was pin them down with earth reinforced by ice, freezing them solid. By combining Beale's earth wall dome with Crimea's ice wall, they managed to overcome that crisis. So Crimea had predicted that man's attack on the inside of the earth wall and sealed it off in advance. Could my current squad ever hope to achieve that level of coordination? How much mutual understanding would it take to fight together like that without a single word or prior planning? That ice bind she used afterward. Could it have been synchronization? Synchronization, a type of magic that only a handful of mages had begun experimenting with in recent years. It was still in the testing phase, but if one's control over magic reached its absolute limit, it was said they could even interfere with their opponent's mana. Wow, you figured it out. Impressive. Our Ares was actually a test subject, a disciple of Professor Train, the guy who developed synchronization. He taught us the theory too. It's really difficult, but I'm glad I managed to pull it off somehow. Hey, so what's different from a normal ice bind? HMPH, didn't you notice? That magnetic mage didn't even realize when he got hit. The guy we fought earlier had crazy sharp instincts, you know. I figured a normal ice bind wouldn't hold him, he'd probably escape. So I used synchronization and froze him slowly, from the inside out. People are surprisingly bad at noticing when something's wrong inside their own bodies. Well, I guess I'll stay here with these kids for now. If the commander went ahead, us tagging along would only get in the way. There didn't seem to be any enemies left nearby, and the two apprentices were probably close to their limits in terms of mana. Considering the possibility of retreat, Crimea chose to remain here and wait. But she couldn't get the words that man had said out of her head. A baby, huh, you're not seriously believing that nonsense, are you? It sounded like a desperate lie he made up on the spot. Gustin was probably right, but the very absurdity of it made her curious, would someone really come up with such a strange lie in a situation like that? What if it was true? Holding her uneasy chest, Crimea fell into thought. Seeing her like that, Jork puffed out his chest with confidence. Hey, Crimea-san, big bros over there, you know. If there's anyone calling for help, I'm sure he'll save them. Hollow diamond, in front of the settlement warehouse. Whoa, you built another crazy thing. What are we supposed to do with that? Looks like draining Naru's mana is working just fine. But, isn't that a little too much kill power for a single shot? And if she actually fires that thing, won't the whole settlement get wiped out? Which means, shit, I gotta stop her or Naru's gonna die. No, wait, I'll die too. Hell, even Jork and the others are in danger. She's treating this like it's not even a human body. Anyway, I gotta make her cancel that spell. Once I've decided, I move. Just like before, I swung the rope side to side, aiming for a sweep. NRGH. But it didn't budge. Using the battle rope for continuous movement had done more damage to my muscles than I thought. Especially my arms, they were in bad shape. Muscle soreness had already started to set in. If my arms won't move, I'll just use my legs. That thing drops and it's all over. I've got no choice but to go. Do not come. Do not come. Do not come. As I charged forward, the puppet spewed out a red, viscous liquid toward me. Ugh, gross. I instinctively jumped back. The liquid that hit the ground began to sizzle, burning into it and leaving holes. This stuff's acid. Ha ha ha. The chant will be done soon. I hope everything gets destroyed. Was it just stalling for time, or had it finally lost its cool? All of a sudden, the puppet itself came charging straight at me. Talking to itself, attacking like crazy. Wait, is it just done pretending to be a puppet now? Well, whatever. If that stuff is acid created by magic, it won't affect me, but if it's some kind of chemical, that's bad news. That puppet gives off a real science nerd vibe. There were tons of chemicals lined up in that warehouse atelier too. But don't have time to test that right now. Honestly, more than the whole chemical danger thing. It just looks nasty and I really don't wanna touch it. Maybe it was because I'd gotten hesitant for a second. Just as I started running again, my body lost balance and I fell. The ground beneath my foot had suddenly caved in. Most likely, the acid was still dissolving the earth underground. Damn it, just how strong is your spit? There were hidden pits under the surface like actual trap holes. Step on one wrong and I'd fall again. If that cooled acid got on my legs, I might not be able to run anymore. Is this karma for digging too many pitfall traps? Are all the guys I dropped into holes suddenly cursing me at once? If so, worst timing ever. Water ball iPhone. Suddenly, a sphere of water wrapped around Naru's face. Blub ga glub. She clawed desperately at the water, trying to get air, but the sphere wasn't coming off that easily. And of course, if she couldn't breathe, there was no way she could keep chanting. WHO or you? Why are you interfering? Ha ha, I made it. I'll stop Naru. So please take down that puppet. Appearing from behind Naru was Yoicho. Covered in wounds from running through the forest, gasping for breath. Yoicho, what are you doing here? No, wait, now's not the time for that. Alright, leave that puppet bastard to me. Even under hypnosis, Naru couldn't keep chanting underwater. But if they waited too long, she'd end up suffocating. This was a race against time. I planted my feet and sprinted straight toward Naru. Rather than trying to dodge the acid that puppet was spitting out, I chose to trust my muscles, betting everything on a straight charge, even if it meant taking a few hits. I remember seeing something like this in a survival game video. Apparently, zigzag running works pretty well against snipers if they're over 100 meters away. But if the distance is shorter, just sprinting straight actually lowers your chances of getting hit. Of course, that only applies when you're running away. I'm charging straight at the enemy, so yeah, the video didn't cover that part. Well, bottom line, if I hit them faster than they can hit me, I win. And right now, running's the only move I've got. So I've just gotta do it. The bastard must have realized that nothing short of a serious hit is gonna stop me. He kept aiming for my face, especially my eyes. Smart move. You can't train your eyeballs, after all. Curse it, if only the spell would activate. Maybe it figured aiming at me wasn't getting anywhere. The puppet spun its head around with an unnatural twist and switched its target to Yoicho on the other side. Shit, it's going after Yoicho. Yoicho had appeared from behind Naru. Which meant there was too much distance between us. I couldn't cover for him. Wool, please make it in time. Bang! At that moment, a dry crack echoed in the distance. And the puppet's head snapped backward. Bang! The moment that dry crack rang out, like the sound of a starter pistol in the distance. The puppet, just about to spit its drool at Yoicho, had its head snapped violently backward. Guh ga wa ti. The acid the puppet had been about to spit slipped from its mouth and fell to the ground, sizzling as it began to melt the earth around Naru's feet. The puppet turned toward me with a confused look. Its head half destroyed, like it had exploded from the inside. But staring at me with that face wasn't gonna help. Hell if I know what just happened. Whatever, guess I'll just smirk and play it cool. Wretched beast filth. But the puppet wasn't looking at me. Its hateful growl was directed further away, at a single trail of smoke rising from the watchtower near the front gate. Beast filth, huh, I don't really get what that's about. But whatever, this is my chance. The path covered in the puppet's drool. There was a good chance the acid had eaten away the ground beneath, just like before. If I was unlucky, I'd break through the weakened surface faster and land on the ground as little as possible. Without slowing down, I planted my right foot and kicked off the earth for a leap. Whoop! The landing spot had been pure instinct. But feeling solid ground beneath me was enough to let out a sigh of relief. Without missing a beat, I pushed forward, kicking off the ground with my right foot again to launch myself even farther. Steep, there was no stopping the momentum now. I threw everything I had into my quads, my pride and joy, and launched myself into a huge leap off my left leg. Jump! I cleared nearly 15 meters in just 3 steps. That's right, a triple jump. I heard the origin of the triple jump was a game where you tried to cross puddles in as few steps as possible. Honestly, there's no better move for closing the gap than this right now. Whaat. A mass of muscle, flying straight at them with terrifying momentum. Just like a cat caught in the headlights of an oncoming car. The puppet creator, the one who crafted these abominations, froze in place, completely caught off guard. Gotcha! I closed the distance in a flash, snatching the puppet right out of Naru's hands the moment I landed. Without stopping, I tumbled across the ground, rolling past Yoicho before finally coming to a stop. Alright, you freaking puppet, finally got you. I squeezed its torso with both hands, grinding it with all my strength as I growled the words. To anyone who didn't know the situation, I probably looked completely unhinged. Undo Naru's brainwashing, and cancel that freaky-looking spell while you're at it. Strangely enough, the moment the puppet was separated from Naru's hand, it went completely limp, like all the bones had been pulled out of its body. It stopped moving altogether, just like a real puppet. Come on, pretending to be just a puppet now isn't gonna fool me. Huh, wait a sec, maybe this thing really was just a magic medium after all. The puppet creator must have been possessing the doll using some kind of magic. When I grabbed it, my resist must have activated. Which means the magic effect on the puppet disappeared, huh. Thinking about it now, it should have been obvious the puppet wasn't the main body. But hey, this is another world. I mean, I kinda thought maybe there was some puppet-type race or something living here. Guess not, huh. I shook the puppet, squeezed it, stretched it, just to make sure. But yeah, no sign of movement. Just in case, I tossed it into the hole full of drool. If it was just playing dead, well, it'd melt anyway, so whatever. With a harsh sizzle and the stench of burning hair, the puppet slowly dissolved into the acid. Hollow diamond, a well-maintained flower bed. A small stone bridge crossed the gentle stream flowing through the garden. Further downstream, a pond awaited, where colorful ornamental fish danced gracefully beneath the moonlight. From one of the rooms in the grand mansion standing at the heart of that beautiful, expansive garden, a furious shout rang out, utterly unfitting for such splendor. Damn it, that muscle-head bastard, I'll never forgive him. Moonlight spilled through the gap in the brown curtains hanging over the large window, illuminating the lavishly decorated room, its fine furnishings and the carpet embroidered with a green bird. Lying on the king-sized bed set in the luxurious guest room, a man ranted endlessly at the canopy overhead. His string of curses, spewed from his sickly thin body, continued until he was out of breath. After a while, perhaps having heard the man's shouting, there came a few knocks at the door. Tap, tap. An elderly butler with white hair appeared, accompanied by 2 servants. You're awake, sir, though it seems a bit earlier than expected. Without wasting a moment, the elderly butler propped the man's upper body up, placed a cushion behind his back, and sat him up on the bed. I was doing just fine up until that point. I spent so much time infiltrating the Republic side and now it's all completely ruined. The man, his long red hair in disarray, ranted on in frustration. Without saying a word, the elderly butler calmly offered him a glass of water. Indeed, sir, but for you to fail. Did some unforeseen incident occur, perchance? Yeah, pretty much. Still, like you said, I did scatter the seeds. Didn't go exactly as planned, though. What happens next depends on how good your master really is, huh? The man downed the offered glass of water in a single gulp. Letting out a long sigh, he closed his eyes, and recalled the last scene he had witnessed. He was quite a large man. The Third Night Order handles border security, right? There's something I need you to look into immediately. As you wish. I have been instructed to respect your decisions to the fullest. Receiving the empty glass, the elderly butler gave a subtle glance to one of the servants. A silent order to bring food. I'll need a detailed list of everyone in the third night order. That man is bound to get in the way of my plans. Very well, sir. I shall have it prepared immediately. The elderly butler pulled a black notebook from his breast pocket, jotted down what the man had said, then tore the page out with a sharp rip, and handed it to the other servant waiting nearby. The servant accepted the note, gave a polite bow on the spot, and quickly left the room. So, where's my ever-reliable partner? There are a few things I need to tell him. Sir Azur has departed for Dry's castle, regarding the selection of envoys to be dispatched to the Pakare Republic. He mentioned that the matter was entangled in various political interests. And I'm afraid there's no telling when he'll return. Reaching into the basket brought in by the next servant, the man grabbed a piece of white bread without a second thought. He tore it apart and shoved it into his mouth, paying no mind as crumbs scattered across the bed. Is that so? Then I suppose I'll write him a letter. Also, prepare the materials in my atelier. Make sure they're fresh. At once, sir. After the elderly butler bowed politely and left the room, the man, now alone, pulled a well-worn puppet from his pocket and began speaking to it with deep affection. Just wait a little longer, Merit. I promise I'll create a world worthy of you. For that, I need to make even more, so many more. Can you do it? To the puppet's question voiced as he moved its mouth with his fingers. The man gave a firm nod. Of course, creation is what I do best. After all, I am a puppet creator. The moment I leapt over the acid-soaked ground in just 3 steps and snatched the puppet from Naru. Yoicho immediately cancelled the water ball spell. Naru collapsed on the spot, like a puppet with its strings cut, crumpling to his knees. Naru, can you hear me? It's me, Yoicho. Rushing over, Yoicho lifted Naru up and rubbed his back, helping him cough up the water. Ga cough, Looks like my quick move paid off. Naru only ended up with a little water in his lungs. No way a long jump would have made it, man. Triple jump really saved my ass. Glad I actually paid attention back in school. Back then, I was like, what the hell's the point of jumping like this? It's not like I'm gonna be a track and field athlete. Man, you really never know what's gonna come in handy in life. Take quadratic curves, for example. I sucked at math, figured I'd never need that crap in my life. But turns out, calculating the trajectory of magic attacks. Yeah, that's basically quadratic functions. I was seriously shocked when Kyle drew that diagram to explain magic. It was literally the same graph from quadratic functions class. Quadratic graphs represent parabolas, which means anything moving through the air follows that curve. Same goes for projectile-type magic. Come to think of it, I think my math teacher said parabolas were originally studied to calculate cannonball trajectories or something. Anyway, I remember feeling kinda murderous, like, man, how the hell can some flashy guy pull off quadratic functions like it's nothing? And at the same time I was pretty let down when I realized studying magic was way more practical than I'd imagined. I really thought it'd be more fantasy-like. Anyway, I guess the lesson here is, you should learn whatever you can, while you can. You never know what you'll end up needing in the future until you get there. Hollow Diamond. Well, I took down the puppet. But Naru's still not fully conscious. I mean, with how much mana he burned through, it's no surprise he's showing signs of mana exhaustion and drifting in and out. Not to mention he was basically drowning just a minute ago. Honestly, it'd be weirder if he was totally fine. Yoicho looks super worried that Naru might still be brainwashed. But it's fine, totally fine. I've already got a full Naru de-brainwashing training menu ready to go in my head. No need to worry about a thing. Yoicho. For now, let's get out of the settlement. Jork and the others are outside, let's regroup and get Naru to Helm as fast as we can. And also, I looked up at the night sky, where that same ball of lightning was still floating, unchanged since before. Naru's magic isn't disappearing. We should probably evacuate as far away as we can before it falls. Hollow Diamond. Earlier, while chasing after Naru, I'd run all over this village, which was about the size of a college campus. And for a settlement this big, the lack of people was just unnatural. Most of the houses I'd barged into were completely empty, with no signs of life whatsoever. At this point, the only ones left here were probably just those few Pakare soldiers we saw earlier. As for what happened to the original residents, yeah, I didn't even want to think about it. And right now, those few remaining Pakare soldiers should be guarding the area around the settlement's main gate, where Jork and the others are. Let's look for a back gate instead of heading for the main one. There's gotta be one somewhere. Following Yoicho's suggestion, we searched the wall on the opposite side of the main gate near the warehouse, checking every inch. But we didn't find anything that looked like a back gate. This village was out in the middle of nowhere, after all. Maybe they prioritized security over convenience by limiting the entry points to just one. Gee, sorry, I didn't think there wouldn't be a back gate. Let's hurry back to the main gate. Nah, that place is probably crawling with Picare soldiers. Getting through won't be easy. It's fine, I'm just gonna break through this wall. Step back for a sec. Break through the wall. Wait. This wall has multiple layers of defensive magic cast on it, it's not something you can just. I handed Naru off to Yoicho, who was still babbling objections. Then turned and drove a full force kick straight into the wall. HNNGH. Wham, crack crack crunch, multiple layers of defensive magic. To me, that's just a wooden plank. Smashing through it was no big deal. I widened the hole in the wall with both hands, slipped out of the settlement, and quickly scanned the area to check if any guards were nearby. We're clear, Yoicho, nobody's around. Behind the settlement, it looked like they'd been in the middle of clearing land. Piles of cut-down trees were stacked here and there, left abandoned just as they were. It looked like months had passed without anyone tending to this place. Moss and mushrooms were growing all over the fallen trees. And what seemed to have once been farmland was now completely overrun with weeds. Just beyond that overgrown field stretched a dense forest. Oh, nice. If we move through that forest, we should be able to get near the main gate without the Picare soldiers spotting you. Carrying someone as small as Naru on my back wasn't exactly a burden for me. But unlike a barbell, I couldn't just toss him around however I wanted, so my movement speed naturally took a hit. Not that I go tossing my barbells around on a regular basis either. I seriously don't get how you can break through a wall like it's nothing. Yoicho, wobbling as he stepped through the gap in the wall with Naru on his back, muttered in disbelief as he stared at the hole I'd made. Well, it's 'cause I've got magic resistance, duh. I don't know what kind of normal you live by. But just so you know, even without defensive enchantments, most people can't kick through a wall like that, okay? The sphere of lightning floating in the sky cast its glow deep into the forest. Every now and then, the lightning dragon raging within the sphere would release a beam of light like a searchlight, sweeping across the area. Avoiding those sweeping rays, Jork and the others hid themselves in the shadows of the trees, gathering as much information about the inside of the settlement as they could. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Hey, Crimea, Naru just made it outside the wall. While waiting in position, Jork had been using detection magic to monitor what was happening inside the settlement. Crimea relayed that information to Beale in real time via a communication magic tool, carefully timing it to coordinate with Beale's wide area spell. He's with them, right? Yeah, I can sense 2 sources of mana, so it's probably Big Bro. Crimea let out a quiet sigh of relief at those words. Charging into a Picare base when he couldn't even cast basic utility magic yet, it was reckless to the point of suicidal. But at the very least, confirming that both of them were still alive came as welcome news. Especially to Crimea, who had long since started treating him like a little brother. Thank goodness, at least this way, I won't have to see Erd all heartbroken. Still, he's always pulling reckless stunts like this. I'll have to give him a proper scolding later. Hey, Jork, are you sure that mana signature is really him? Couldn't it have been just the girl who made it out? Didn't that puppet have mana too? Nah, the amount of mana is way different from before. It's pretty high too, I'm telling ya, that's definitely Big Bro. Still, when I saw Big Bro's mana earlier, for some reason I couldn't see any of it at all. Nah, I'm sure it was just my imagination. Jork felt a slight doubt in the back of his mind. But he quickly brushed it off, convincing himself it was simply because he wasn't used to checking individual mana signatures yet. It had to be due to his own lack of skill. Hey, Jork, with that magic of yours, could you pick up small mana signatures too? Like say, a baby's. Never seen a baby's mana before, so I wouldn't know. But looking around real quick, I don't see anything that fits. Even a baby's gotta have more mana than a rat, right? HMPH, honestly, you fool. Even an infant would never have mana as low as a rat's. There's no way their mana could be weaker than that puppet's from earlier. Don't compare them to vermin. Hey, come on. I was just asking. Acting all high and mighty when you haven't even done anything. What? Haven't done anything, you say? I've been keeping watch over the area. Keeping watch, huh? Pretty sure my detection magic's covering that just fine, don't you think? That's. It was true just as Jork had said. While his detection magic was active, it allowed him to scan the surrounding mana as if overlooking the area from above. If anyone entered the vicinity, he would detect them immediately. Given that, it was hard to blame him for thinking Guston's watchfulness was little more than a formality. Alright, break it up, you two. Even if you can spot any intruders nearby, it doesn't mean much if you can't react in time, right? You're doing your part just fine by staying ready to cast magic at a moment's notice. That's more than enough. Yeah, you've got a point. If I can't respond right away, it's useless. Sorry, Guston, I said some dumb stuff. Well, leave dealing with the Picare soldiers to me. You just focus on your detection. Crimea tried to follow up with Guston, who was clearly downcast and wearing a gloomy expression. But for Guston, the frustration of his own poor performance in the earlier battle, being called useless by Jork, and worst of all, being comforted by Crimea, a commoner from an orphanage. All of it added up to a considerable blow to his pride. What was I so full of myself for? To be protected by the very commoners I was meant to protect and even pitied by them. No, I must become stronger. Much stronger. Alright, I'll give it a shot. Asked by Crimea to search for the baby, Jork filtered out any mana signatures weaker than that puppets and began scanning the settlement again. All of the mana within the settlement was moving actively, meaning none of them were likely to belong to a baby. There was one mana signature that wasn't moving at all. But that was probably the magnetic mage from earlier. Yeah, I'm not picking up anything that looks like it. So it was a lie after all. I see. Is that so? That means there's nothing left in there but enemies, right? Commander, do you copy? Let it rip. A calm voice came through the communication orb. Open hollow corner bracket understood. I'm beginning the incantation for a wide area spell now. Listen carefully. Once this spell activates, even I won't be able to stop it. Do not approach the settlement under any circumstances. Crimea, I'm counting on you. Close hollow corner bracket. Rugger that. Crimea clapped her hands for emphasis. Listen up. Just like the commander said, you absolutely, positively, no matter what, cannot go near the settlement, got it? Understood. Hey, shouldn't we tell Big Bro and the others that too? It was a fair point. Commander Beale's wide area spells weren't something to take lightly. If possible, they needed to put as much distance between themselves and the settlement as they could. Right, let's leave that side to the commander and start preparing to retreat. We'll head through the forest and regroup with the others on the other side. Hollow Diamond, man, walking through this rough forest terrain sucks. But I gotta admit I'm pretty grateful for that giant lightning ball lighting up the place right now. At this rate, we should be able to meet up with Jork and the others real soon. My mouth was bone dry before I even realized it. After all that running around, I'd totally forgotten to hydrate. I reached for my canteen without thinking and then froze. It's gone. Whoa, you scared me. What's with the yelling all of a sudden? The Picare soldiers might still be nearby, keep it down. Ignoring Yoicho's warning, I quickly set Naru down and frantically started searching around my waist over and over again. I even checked my back and the soles of my feet, but yeah, still no sign of it. My canteen's gone crap, I must have dropped it somewhere. Oh, it's just your canteen. That's fine, I can make as much water as you need. Here, hold out your hands. Relieved it wasn't anything serious, Yoicho extended his hand, letting a gentle stream of water trickle from his fingers. And no, that's not it. I mean I forgot something. Yeah, I just need to go grab something I left behind. Sorry, but can you hide here for a bit? Wait, what? I told you, I've got water. I'll be fine, I'll be right back. Without even turning around to answer Yoicho's protest, I sprinted off toward the settlement. I'll be fine, I'll be right back. Leaving a bewildered Yoicho behind, I turned around and ran straight back toward the settlement we'd just escaped. Where the hell did I drop it? Probably during the fighting, no doubt about it. That's when I was oving the most. Yeah, gotta be in front of the warehouse. When I finally made it back to the area in front of the warehouse, the ground was caved in here and there. There were holes, chunks of earth torn up, debris from the building scattered everywhere. It looked like there'd been some kind of brutal battle. But in reality, all I'd done was mess around with a battle rope for muscle training and do a triple jump. I started checking the area where I'd been earlier, especially around the spot where I did the triple jump. I moved aside bits of broken wood, peeked into the holes in the ground where the puppet's drool had melted through. But nothing that looked like my canteen. Even if it had melted, there should have been some kind of leftover debris, right? Man, this area's way too big to search. This might take a while. The canteen I dropped wasn't exactly small, but it wasn't big enough to stand out either. It was made of leather, dull in color, not something that'd catch your eye at a glance. If I asked Yoicho, the guy who specialized in utility magic, he probably knew some cleaning spell that could just sweep the whole area and find it in no time. But still, I kinda dropped the canteen that Naru's hand accidentally touched. Yeah, no way I'm saying that. Guess the only other place would be inside the warehouse. Pretty sure I still had it hanging from my waist back then. Well, might as well check just in case. I gave up on searching the area in front of the warehouse for now, and headed into the building where I'd first run into Naru. After all, I did slam into a wall back there. Wouldn't be too crazy if it fell off around that time. Hollow diamond, there it is. Thank God. Seriously, much appreciated. Who am I thanking, you ask? Obviously I'm thanking past me for deciding to check inside the warehouse. Just like I'd guessed, the canteen was buried under some rubble near the broken wall. When I checked inside, yup, Naru's wrist was still in there. At this point, I didn't even feel grossed out anymore. Guess that means I've gotten used to this world, Man, getting used to stuff is scary. What's this, a handle? As I moved aside the rubble, I noticed a wooden handle sticking out from underneath. The kind you'd see on one of those floor storage hatches near the kitchen. But this wasn't a kitchen, it was a warehouse. I kinda doubted it was full of kitchen paper or extra seasonings like the storage space back at my parents' house. Wait. Don't tell me. There's treasure hidden down here or something. Oh yeah, I remembered something Kyle and Ubin told me before. When we take down a bandit hideout, the treasure those guys hoarded up usually gets divided among the squad unless it's some crazy valuable artifact. If you're broke, signing up for those missions ain't a bad idea. They always recruit volunteers for bandit hunts. So hurry up and become a full knight already, then spend that hard-earned cash right here, will ya? Or something like that, living like a freeloader in the night order. I was technically working, sure, but all I got was the bare minimum. Food, clothes, and a place to sleep. Getting paid? Yeah, not happening. In other words, I was flat broke. I mean, if I ever got kicked out of the night order, yeah, I'd definitely need some cash to survive. No way in hell I'm becoming a beggar in another world. That's like bottom-tier humiliation. Bandits, Picare soldiers. They're pretty much the same thing, right? In other words, if I found something valuable here and took it back with me, it wouldn't be looting, it'd be rightful compensation. I mean, they did say the loot gets split up. But in this case, who exactly would I be splitting it with? Yoicho and Naru, or maybe the whole squad? Well, whatever. I'll worry about that later. First things first, let's see what's down there. Well, usually in situations like this, it's just some dumb vase or a pile of worthless junk. But hey, what if, by some miracle, it's a massive stash of gold and treasure? With just a tiny bit of hope in my heart, I grabbed the handle. When I gave it a good pull, there it was, a ladder leading down into an underground room. A cool, damp breeze drifted up from the darkness below. And I couldn't help but grin. This might just be the real deal. Hollow diamond. Oh, this is probably cheese. And this bag's gotta be wheat or something. The rickety wooden ladder creaked beneath me as I climbed down. Only to find a plain, boring underground storage room. Looks like this place was a food cellar taking advantage of the cool underground temperature. On the shelves were round objects, covered in mold, that looked like they might have once been cheese. And a bunch of burlap sacks stacked up. Kinda disappointing there wasn't any gold or treasure. But hey, I still managed to find something pretty useful. I'd spent the whole day sprinting around the settlement, swinging those battle ropes like a maniac. My muscles had taken a real beating, but without the nutrients to recover, all that effort would go to waste. Worse, my body would start burning muscle for energy instead. I needed protein, and fast. So for a guy in desperate need of post-workout recovery, this moldy cheese, honestly, a godsend. This is my first time seeing a round cheese. Man, this smells pretty strong. Is this safe to eat? I'd managed to get one of the cheeses down from the shelf. But the smell hit me hard. Way stronger than the cheese I was used to. It stank like a wild animal. Honestly, I couldn't tell if this thing was properly aged. Or just straight up rotten. I'll take this back with me and ask Uben how to prepare it. Maybe it wasn't made from cow's milk. It could have been from some other kind of livestock. I mean, they make cheese from goat's milk too, right? For now, I decided to take a few of them back with me. I emptied out one of the sacks that looked like it was filled with wheat. And stuffed as much cheese into it as I could. Guess I'll leave the wheat-looking stuff behind. It'd just take up too much space. And I've still gotta carry Naru on my back. I felt kinda bad for Naru, getting carried alongside these ridiculously animal-smelling blocks of cheese. But leaving behind these precious spoils, this protein wasn't an option for me. A little stink, please. I used to chug overseas protein powder that reeked of chemicals. This was nothing, as I was about to climb the ladder with my spoils in tow. I placed my hand against the wall. Bwah! And just like that, the sensation of solid wall beneath my hand suddenly disappeared. Losing my balance, I toppled straight toward the wall. With a loud thud, I hit the ground in the most ridiculous way possible. Only to get smacked in the head by the sack full of cheese that came crashing down after me. Gah-ow, what the hell? Just a moment ago, this had definitely been nothing but an ordinary wall. And yet now, there was a gaping hole right in front of me. Looks like I accidentally resisted whatever magic had been cast on the wall. I pushed myself up from the cold stone floor. Looking around, I found myself in a small room maybe about the size of 4 tatami mats. Roughly 70 square feet, and right in the center. A small coffin, faintly glowing, other than that nothing. A hidden room. In front of the settlement's main gate, a group of military engineers stood on alert, having just finished repairing the wall that had been destroyed by explosive and wind magic. That earlier attack had no doubt been an enemy probe. Tension gripped the engineers' faces as they braced for what they believed was the imminent arrival of the enemy's main force. And then a man appeared before them. Hey, he's here. Is that the main force finally showing up? No, it's just one guy. The man marched right up to the gate and stood there, bold as can be. Then, in full view of the stunned engineers, he began reciting a long incantation as if they didn't even exist. He was mocking them. Everyone thought the same thing. A mage standing alone on the battlefield, boldly chanting in front of the enemy, no cover, no hesitation. For most mages, chanting was when they were most vulnerable. Unless they were wearing special armor or had cast defensive spells beforehand, standing around mid-chant was practically suicide. He must think we're just engineers. The idiot doesn't even realize we can cast basic attack spells. During the previous attack, they'd prioritized wall repairs and left the counterattacks to the mercenaries. Now that the mercs were gone, the enemy must have assumed they had no way to strike back. Combat engineers, soldiers trained for battlefield construction and logistics. Their primary job wasn't to fight, but to build and reinforce. That didn't mean they couldn't use attack magic at all. As part of the army, they received proper training including basic offensive spells. They just weren't very good at it. He's still chanting, take him out before he finishes. Yeah, but where'd the mercs go? One's injured. No idea what happened to the other. Mercs, man, so reliable. Even if their spells were weak, this many attacks at once had to do some damage. If power wasn't enough, they'd win with numbers. Man, must be nice being a merc. Maybe I'll become one too. Wait, what the hell is that? Crap, if you've got time to talk, you've got time to cast. At first, the engineers had been relaxed, even joking. But the moment the man began chanting, a thick, visible surge of mana filled the air and their faces went pale. Fire! 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 Stop him! Interrupt the chant! Lumps of earth flew through the air, fired without pause. But for each shot, a wall of dirt rose instantly to block it. Heavy thuds echoed as earth clashed against earth. Dust clouds filled the air. No one could even see where their spells were landing anymore. And yet, the sloppy attack magic kept flying from behind the barricade. No, they couldn't stop. They had to keep casting. It's no use. He's not stopping. Incredible. Even while chanting, the man was defending himself with earth magic. Double casting. That insane mana, and he's an earth mage. Wait, is that? That's Beal from the Sarshu Kingdom, Beal the Annihilator. Hollow Diamond. Commander Beal of the Sarshu Kingdom, one of the top 3 mana holders in the nation. An earth mage so powerful, he gained international fame after single-handedly annihilating the infamous cross-border criminal Gilda Gazel in a single night, by himself. His name spread like wildfire across neighboring countries. They called him Beal the Annihilator. His magic didn't just kill people. It erased everything caught in the blast: buildings, trees, terrain. Gone. The Annihilator, that's the guy who took out the kingdom branch of Agazel, right? Yeah, they say the whole area was wiped clean. Not even a blade of grass left. Agazel, a ruthless criminal guild known for murder, theft, and cross-border crime. A blight on every country they touched. Back then, Beale had served as vice commander of the Second Night Order, tasked with maintaining order in the cities. Agazel was a top priority threat, but no one knew where their hideouts were. Then one of Beale's men, deep in an undercover operation, got caught in an Agazel trap. Tortured, killed, his body strung up in the city square. His family slaughtered. Beale snapped. Gripping the map his subordinate had managed to pass on marking the guild's location, he stormed into the slums alone. And there, he unleashed a wide area spell. Fueled by rage, Beale poured every ounce of power he had into the spell. The slums vanished, flattened, turned to sand. Agazel gone, every last member. When the knights caught up with him, all they found was a desert. No survivors, no buildings, just empty wasteland. A single man had done that. From that day on, he was known as the Annihilator. Of course, the devastation caused an uproar. Beale was arrested, held accountable, and briefly imprisoned. But the kingdom couldn't ignore what he'd done. The guild had crossed national lines. And the area he destroyed, a crime-ridden slum the kingdom had long wanted to purge. Taking all that into account, they reinstated him, this time as commander of the Third Night Order, assigned to border patrol, where his wide area magic could be fully utilized. That's the Annihilator. A loud gulp echoed from somewhere in the crowd. The engineers had all gone still. No one was casting anymore. Everyone just stood there staring at the man in front of the gate. And in the silence, only Beale's calm, steady chant echoed through the air. Damn it, there's no way we can win against a monster like that. The attacks they hurled with everything they had didn't land. Only Beale's chant kept echoing, advancing without pause. And with it, that overwhelming mana began to fill not just the space around Beale, but the entire settlement. Rumors always tend to get blown out of proportion. I figured the stories about the Annihilator were just drunken tales exaggerated over time. But now that I'm facing him for real, yeah, no doubt about it. That guy's a straight-up monster. Even though Beale hadn't launched a single attack yet, the combat engineers already wore the expressions of defeated men. His steadily growing magical presence closed in around them. And with each passing moment, it felt more and more like they were death row inmates. Trapped in a prison they could never escape. Hey, we're not actually at war with the Sathu kingdom, right? Maybe we should just apologize or something. Why yeah, good point. I mean, it was the mercenaries who brought their people here in the first place. Just then, a furious voice rang out from behind the engineers, who had completely lost the will to fight. That is absolutely unacceptable. No one knew when he had arrived, but there stood Halbus, his face twisted into a furious scowl as he glared at the engineers like a raging demon. But, Captain, our mercenaries, our main offensive force, are out of commission. Yeah, and besides our opponents probably that Annihilator, right? The engineers spoke with the defeat already in their voices, utterly pessimistic. But Halbus shouted back at them with a voice that boomed far louder than one would expect from his small frame. Do not panic. Our mission is to maintain this outpost and prepare for the arrival of the main force, not to defeat the Annihilator ourselves. Halbus wasn't a captain for nothing. He had the presence and command to snap the shaken engineers back to their senses with a single roar. I guess you're right. Yeah, if we don't have to beat him, then maybe we can handle this. A faint glimmer of hope returned to the engineers' faces. They specialized in erecting sturdy walls and reinforcing them with advanced defensive magic. If a wall was broken, they'd repair it immediately, rebuilding it stronger than it had been before. Their job wasn't to defeat the enemy, but to block the enemy's attacks. That was the true strength of the 6th Engineer Unit. But how long do we have to hold out? Sure, right now the only enemy in sight was the Annihilator alone. But sooner or later, the main force would come marching in too. And after repeatedly rebuilding the wall that had been blown apart earlier by explosive magic, it was safe to say their mana reserves weren't exactly at full capacity. Do not worry, I received word just now through magic communication. Our comrades have already dispatched the main force to this location. Just hold out a little longer. Reinforcements are coming, we only need to endure until then. Yeah, a unified cheer rose from the engineers. In a siege with no end in sight, their morale would have crumbled. But now that it was a defensive battle with promised reinforcements on the way, it was a whole different story. When people can see the finish line, they can push themselves to keep going. Enough with those useless attacks. There's no point fighting in a field you're weak in. Focus on what we do best. Raise more walls. Reinforce them with more magic. Wall construction is the pride of the 6th Engineering Unit. Even Beale the Annihilator won't break through our ironclad defenses so easily. Hollow Diamond, is that really all right? A small round table sat on a sunlit balcony. The delicate tea set placed upon it had been crafted from rare white seashells, harvested from the depths of the sea, a masterpiece in both form and value. The gentle, refined sweetness of the tea's aroma wafted up from the cup, teasing the senses. But despite the beverage being a luxury far beyond the reach of commoners, the man across from her drank it all down in one swift motion, without the slightest hesitation. Watching him, she let out a soft sigh of exasperation and posed her question. The Bilbalni order had existed since the founding of the Pakare Republic. They worshipped Avon, the official god of the nation, and were the most ancient and the most powerful religious organization within its borders. Devoted to spreading his teachings, they continued their work with unwavering dedication. The Pakare Republic was said to have no monarch. That much, of course, was to be expected. It was a republic, after all. But the reality was a bit more complicated. The supreme leader of the Pakare Republic, known as the Grand Representative, is selected from among 8 of the most influential and meritorious figures in the nation. And those 8 individuals, those celebrated contributors, are chosen by none other than the High Priest of the Bilbalni Church. In other words, while there may be no monarch in name, the Pakare Republic is, in practice, a theocracy ruled by the Bilbalni Church. Here in the holy capital of Larmia stood the main headquarters of the Bilbalni Church. Within the grand temple resided the sacred inner sanctum of their god, Avon. Among the countless clergy who resided within the temple grounds at all times, there existed a special chamber known as the Divine Prayer Room Shian-Chi-Ju, a private space granted only to the church's high-ranking priests. It was within that solemn room that a man and a woman now sat across from each other, sipping tea. She wore a pristine white priestess robe and an ornate veil. Hanging from her neck was a golden medallion, engraved with the figure of the god Adel, the unmistakable symbol of a high priestess. Her gentle eyes bore no trace of wrinkles, and at first glance, she appeared to have reached her high station at a young age. But as an elf, a race that lived at a vastly different pace than humans, her true age was anyone's guess. Across from the gentle high priestess, her appearance the very image of piety, sat a man whose presence clashed violently with the sanctity of the temple. He wore a blood-stained military uniform, wholly unfitting for such a sacred place, and sipped his tea with a carelessness that bordered on disrespect. After stowing the communication magic device he had just been using into his pocket, he crossed his legs, casting a sideways glance at the cup being refilled beside him. "Hey, you weren't serious about sending the main force to that backwater, were you?" "Of course not. The 6th Engineering Unit is operating on Kingdom soil. If we actually deployed the main force, it'd blow up into a full-blown international incident." The man showed not even a hint of deference as he spoke, despite sitting across from the church's highest-ranking priestess. One of the acolytes standing guard by the door couldn't help but scowl at his insolence. However, the priestess didn't seem the least bit bothered. On the contrary, she calmly poured the man a second cup of tea herself. Watching the esteemed high priestess act so familiarly with him, the acolyte had no choice but to hold his tongue. All he could do was glare at the man with every ounce of disapproval he could muster. "So Captain Halbus gets a posthumous double promotion, does he?" She said it softly, almost like offering a prayer. "It can't be helped, it's not like I wanted to leave Nelvis behind." Despite those words, the man's gaze drifted far off as if remembering a distant past. After all, they were once comrades in training. Though, rank-wise, a considerable gap had formed between them now. Originally, the plan was for a Republic unit to just so happen to find a village under attack by Imperial troops and rush in to save them, correct? Exactly. Unfortunately, the rescue came too late. The villagers were already dead, and the Imperial soldiers got away, but according to our investigation, it turned out the village actually belonged to the Kingdom of Sarth. If we had spread news of this to the kingdom's people, even that slow-moving king would have had no choice but to join the war. The man closed his eyes in frustration, massaging his eyelids with long fingers. Nothing ever went quite according to plan. The Pakare Republic had officially declared war on the Narbonne Empire. But even with that bold decision made, one critical problem remained. How could they possibly close the widening gap in military strength, especially with the Empire's rapid advancements in magical technology in recent years? The Republic believed it still had a real shot at victory. Why? Because they planned to fight alongside the Sathu Kingdom, a fellow human nation with its own troubled history with the Beastkin. In other words, the Republic was banking on the kingdom's military might to tip the scales. It might seem reckless to depend on a foreign power in the middle of war, but there was a reason for that confidence. Behind the scenes, they'd already secured support from several of the kingdom's ministers, major merchant guilds, and even General Azure himself. Naturally, they assumed the kingdom would join the war without hesitation and launch their campaign. But to their shock, the king of Sathu declared neutrality. Voices inside the kingdom cried out, "We must enter this war." But the king, the only one who could actually make that decision, refused to move. The Republic, thrown into a panic, scrambled to convince the kingdom to join. During this delicate negotiation period, a troubling report arrived. Their scouting unit stationed along the kingdom's border had gone silent. A more thorough investigation revealed the cause. The border wall had apparently vanished without anyone in the Republic being informed. As a result, one of the scouting units unknowingly crossed into kingdom territory and was swiftly eliminated by border knights. Some in the Republic were outraged. How could they wipe out our soldiers? But it was clearly their fault. It was an illegal crossing, ignorance or not. Escalating the matter risked derailing ongoing negotiations, so they held back. Instead, the Republic's leadership started looking for ways to spin the incident to their advantage. Behind closed doors, they met in secret with collaborators within the kingdom. What emerged from those meetings was Operation Op for the Sacrifice. It was a bold plan: sacrifice one of the kingdom's remote villages. If word spread that innocent citizens had been massacred by imperial troops, public outrage would skyrocket. Even the indecisive king would be forced to act. But there was one non-negotiable requirement. The villagers had to be completely wiped out. If even a single witness survived, the truth would get out that the attackers weren't imperial soldiers at all. If that happened, the Republic's image would be destroyed. The alliance would collapse before it even began. And let's face it, asking someone to kill unarmed villagers, even under orders, was bound to shake their conscience. If anyone hesitated or held back, the entire plan could fall apart. That's why the mission was handed to Halbus's unit, men known not for flexibility, but for rigid discipline and patriotic loyalty. Halbus himself was only ordered to build a base. The actual attack on the villagers would be carried out by Republic-aligned collaborators posing as mercenaries. Halbus had been told to let the mercenaries act freely, but that turned out to be a mistake. The kingdom's collaborator embedded with them went rogue, killing targets outside the original plan, including members of the kingdom's own night order. So, what's the new story going to be? After refilling the man's teacup, she gestured for the acolyte at the door to prepare fresh tea leaves, then eased back into her chair, bringing the warm cup to her lips. Let's see. My unit discovered the remains of a village, slaughtered by the Empire. While we were respectfully burying the dead, Imperial soldiers snuck in again with hostages. As we tried to rescue them, the kingdom's forces mistook us for the enemy and opened fire. The 6th Engineering Unit was wiped out. Oh my, and do you really think the kingdom will accept such a convenient excuse? Don't they have witnesses? The real blame lies with the collaborator they hired. And who did they end up provoking? The Annihilator. We had no choice but to abandon an entire unit. The kingdom can handle the cleanup on their end. The man added, and besides, the Republic was never informed that the border wall was missing. That's a perfectly valid cause for confusion, don't you think? Hollow Diamond. Some time earlier. Ooh, I see now, so that's Big Bro's enemy, or wait, maybe an ally. Which is it, NYA? From atop the watchtower, Foul Cat-Eared Ninja Scout from the Narbonne Empire was watching the battle between the puppet-controlling Naru and the muscular human. As she observed, she reached into the black case on her back and pulled out a long, tube-like magic tool. That tiny puppet's the source of all this, NYA. It wasn't a wand or a staff, this was something else. Something unfamiliar in this world. It had a grip, a trigger, a gun. It fired magic-infused bullets. Single shot, muzzle-loading, primitive, like an old matchlock musket. Compared to modern firearms or direct cast spells, it was weak and clunky. But it had its uses. The bullets could be preloaded with magical attributes, and Beastkin, whose mana reserves were typically low, could fire them with ease. Most importantly, anyone who could pull the trigger could perform long-range attacks. Regular spells had a practical range of about 330 feet. Any farther and the spell lost power and accuracy. Only mages with absurd mana reserves like Beal could fire effective spells beyond that. The distance is roughly 600 feet, easy for me, NYA. Even with the lightning orb lighting up the area, aiming that precisely at this distance took beast folk vision. I'll earn myself a favor from that big guy, NYA. I'm sure it'll come in handy later, NYA. Bang. The sharp crack of a gunshot echoed, and the bullet hit its mark, slamming straight into the puppet's head, just as it was about to spit acid. Yes. Bullseye, NYA. She danced in place, though she could have sworn the puppet glared at her for a second. Still, by the time the big guy finished messing with it, the puppet had gone limp, so she figured it was fine. Fal continued watching as the others escaped the settlement, pondering her own route. Until suddenly, every hair on her tail stood on end. What the heck, NYA. She spun and pointed her magical binoculars toward the main gate. Then immediately leapt off the watchtower and sprinted full speed in the opposite direction. If I get caught in that, I'm toast, NYA. My instincts are screaming at me to run, NYA. She darted across rooftops, dove through the same hole the others had escaped from, and bolted into the woods. First it was that big guy with no visible mana. Now there's an old dude overflowing with it, NYA. The kingdom's in serious trouble, NYA. I've gotta report this full speed, NYA. It's time. After confirming that sufficient mana had spread across the area surrounding the settlement, Beal began gauging the perfect moment to cast his spell. The enemy stronghold stood directly ahead. No allies in sight. For an ordinary man, this would be a hopeless situation, cut off, alone, surrounded on all sides. But for Beal, it was the ideal scenario. A setting where he could unleash his true strength without holding anything back. During normal combat operations, Beal typically stays in the rear. This is partly because, as a commander, he needs a clear view of the battlefield to assess the situation and issue orders. But more importantly, if he were to pour his full mana into an attack spell, there's a very real danger it could engulf his allies along with the enemy. Experienced knights usually have no trouble adjusting how much mana they pour into each spell. But the more mana one possesses, the harder it becomes to fine-tune that output. To put it simply, Beal operates on an entirely different scale compared to other mages. If an average mage adjusts their mana output in increments of, say, 1 ounce at a time, then Beal does it by the pound. In other words, controlling anything less than a pound of mana becomes extremely difficult for him. When it comes to defensive magic, pouring in more mana simply makes the barrier tougher, which makes it ideal for spells like Earth Wall. Just like earlier, when he blocked the magnetic mage's black spikes, Beal could instantly summon a palm-sized wall of hardened earth to defend himself. However, when it comes to offensive spells, that immense power becomes a double-edged sword. Whether at close or even mid-range, the sheer force of the attack, depending on its area of effect or timing, could just as easily harm Beal himself or his allies. Among magic users who possess such immense mana reserves, there are those whose combat effectiveness actually increases when they fight alone, rather than as part of a group. As a result, many of them tend to operate solo. In Beal's case, however, things are different. Thanks to his dependable personality, strong leadership, and exceptional skill as an earth mage, especially in supporting roles, he was appointed as a knight commander, leading a squad into battle. Inside the wall, the combat engineers had suddenly found renewed spirit and were busily reinforcing the defenses. Beal watched them with a cold, detached gaze. Then he murmured under his breath, "Sandstorm." In an instant, the ambient mana in the air began to take form. Whatever you do now, it's already too late. The only way you might have survived was to run, and you've missed that chance. Beal took a few steps back and folded his arms, gazing silently at the settlement before him. Not because he intended to spare them, but to witness how it would all end. I'll be taking revenge for my fallen comrades. Hollow diamond. Huh, is that black mist? One of the engineers stationed atop the main gate finally noticed the anomaly. A creeping darkness like a thick, black fog was slowly rolling in, now drifting close enough that he could almost reach out and touch it. What the hell? This misty stuff is really his magic? It was just idle curiosity. They had all feared the Annihilator's magic to such an extent so naturally, he'd expected something more vicious, more overwhelming, something utterly destructive. That was the kind of terrifying spell he'd been bracing for. But what was this thing in front of him? It was just mist, no sharp edges to tear through flesh, no overwhelming speed. A flimsy, black haze drifted slowly in the air, the kind that looked like it would vanish with a strong gust of wind. It didn't match the image he'd built up in his mind at all. Yet here it was. Just missed. And before he realized it, he reached out and touched it. Hot. The combat engineer recoiled in shock, yanking his hand back as if he'd just touched searing hot brass. Hot damn, what the hell is this? He tried blowing on his hand to cool it down, but something felt off. He couldn't even feel the air hitting his skin. Puzzled, he looked at the wound. His hand was gone. No fingers. All that remained was an arm, cleanly severed at the wrist. What is this? Still stunned, he stared at the stump in disbelief. From the cross-section white fat exposed tiny red specks began to bubble up. They quickly joined together, and before long, blood was pulsing from the wound, as if a heart had been beating right there in his severed wrist. My hand's gone. The engineer's scream was the catalyst. The black mist began to move at first slowly, then picking up speed as it crept forward. The wide area spell sandstorm wasn't merely a mist meant to obscure vision. What surrounded them was a cloud of microscopic sand particles, each one created and propelled by Beel's mana in constant, high-speed motion. And these particles weren't rounded grains of sand, either. Each one was shaped like a tiny, razor-sharp rhombus. Touching them was like dragging your body across a grinding rasp they would shave through anything they came into contact with. The black haze spiraled inward, gradually shrinking in both size and reach as it twisted toward the center of the settlement. Please, someone, one of the engineers, trapped atop the wall with nowhere to run, was swallowed whole by the dark mist. Don't touch the mist. Fall back. Everyone, retreat to headquarters. I didn't think it would be this powerful. The walls they'd so painstakingly reinforced were being swallowed one after another by the dark haze. Halbus didn't even want to imagine what lay beyond it. To regroup and re-establish their defenses, he quickly ordered the engineers to fall back. Hey, move it. Fall back, now. Quit pushing me. What the hell's going on? How are we supposed to know if nobody explains anything? One of the younger engineers, still unable to grasp the situation, grabbed the shoulder of a veteran who had just shoved past him, shouting in frustration. The veteran engineer slapped the younger one's hand away then, without missing a beat, grabbed him by the collar and yanked him forward. Quit standing around. Move your ass. And with that, he gave the stumbling rookie a swift kick to the back. Hey, damn it, just wait. I'm telling you, shut up and run already, you damn foo. The veteran engineer never finished his sentence. Right in front of the younger man's eyes, he crumbled away as if his entire body had turned to dust and dissolved into the haze. What is this? What's going on? Zore's eyes snapped open, stirred awake by the unrest and the dense flow of mana in the air. Not that he'd been truly asleep to begin with. It had only been a light doze just deep enough to allow his body, mind, and mana reserves to recover to a functional level in case anything happened. He tried to sit up, only to grimace in pain. That damn healer didn't fix a damn thing. If the freezing had only affected the surface, healing might have had a chance of working. But Zore had been hit with Icebind, a restraint spell cast using a sync connection, freezing him from the inside out. Even with healing magic, an injury like that wasn't going to mend so easily. I really didn't want to use any more mana today. Liar's iron. Zore drew iron sand from the ground with his magic and wrapped it around his unresponsive legs. By reinforcing his immobile shins with sand iron, he managed to stabilize them enough to at least walk again. Dragging his heavy legs, Zore limped toward the window and peeked outside. What he saw was a black haze steadily approaching, gnawing away at the reinforced walls despite the layers of defensive magic woven into them. The mist climbed high into the sky, stretching upward with such force that even the lightning orb above seemed on the verge of being swallowed. Just how much mana would it take to sustain a wide area spell of this magnitude, one that covers such massive height and area? So this is the Annihilator's wide area spell, huh? Way beyond anything I imagined. Thinking back, yeah, he gave off that presence. I should have realized it when he blocked my black magnetic spikes so easily in the dark. Should have just made a run for it back then. But it was far too late for regrets now. So what now? Zore checked the surroundings again through the window. The black haze was still lingering around the outer wall, but its size and speed were clearly growing. Most likely, whatever it consumed became part of it, amplifying its power. Which meant one thing: the longer it persisted, the more dangerous it became. Even at a glance, it was obvious this wasn't something magic could handle anymore. Neither defense nor offense would work against that. If I get caught in that, I'll be wiped out. Even liar's iron won't cut it this time, so that means. Zore checked the location of the workshop warehouse. It was damaged, but still standing. Not completely collapsed. Looks like hiding in there until things cool down is my only option. No way that mist's gonna reach underground, right? Zore pulled a mana potion from inside his coat, a hidden emergency stash, and downed it in one go. Mana potions were expensive, far more potent than your average mana pill. High-priced consumables like these demanded the right timing and the guts to actually use them. Many rookie mercenaries, too reluctant to waste something so costly, often ended up dead before ever uncorking one. Ah, there it goes. Welp, there goes this job's profits. Not that I had a choice, kinda hard to spend gold when you're dead. Wait, did Neburos get taken out? No way, there's no chance that puppet went down that easily. He had tons of backups stored down there. In this kind of situation, he'd definitely hole up in the basement. No way in hell he'd be crazy enough to be out front fighting alongside those engineers. Using the mana he'd just recovered, Zore activated the magnetic flow in his legs. By manipulating the attraction between the iron sand beneath his feet and the iron armor wrapped around his legs, he managed to regain enough mobility for a light jog. Sorry to the poor engineers still busting their asses trying to build walls. But I'm getting the hell out of here while I still can. Hollow diamond. As Zore drew closer to the storage atelier, he began to hear something faint crying. Huh, is that a kid crying? There was definitely a child locked in the basement. But that one was supposed to be in a state of suspended animation put there by Neburos, the puppet creator. The idea was to keep them fresh as material, ready to be used at any time. No need for feeding, no need to clean up after them. It was efficient, sure. But it sure as hell wasn't what you'd call a normal hobby. Zore stepped into the storage atelier and looked around, then widened his eyes in disbelief. What the hell? What kind of rampage could have caused this mess? Collapsed walls, splintered wood, strange, oversized machines scattered across the floor. It looked like a massive hurricane had torn through the room. For a moment, Zore panicked, worried the entrance to the basement had been buried under the rubble. But it seemed intact. The floor hatch leading below had been left wide open, and the crying was clearly coming from somewhere down there. What, got here ahead of me, huh? Hey, Neburos, how about making me a new leg before you start messing with your dolls? Grumbling as he descended the ladder, Zore expected to find the puppet master at work. But Neburos was nowhere to be seen. Instead, a broad-shouldered man was pacing nervously around the cramped basement, holding a bawling child in his arms. Who the hell are you? The guy holding the kid turned to Zore, eyes lighting up the moment he saw him. Oh, thank God. Hey, can you produce milk? Huh, like hell I can. Who the hell is this guy? Is he blind or something? If he thinks I look like a woman, he's seriously messed up in the head. I don't know who he is, but he's definitely not one of the engineers. Which means, hey, big guy, don't tell me you took down that Neburos. As long as he's got spare bodies, there's no way Neburos should be able to die. If this guy actually managed to bring him down, then he's no one to take lightly. And looking at the state of this workshop, maybe he's the one who did all this too. I quickly took up a stance. I don't know about other mages, but as mercenaries, we're always ready for close quarters combat. Even in a cramped room like this, we know how to fight. Neburos, oh, you mean that creepy puppet guy? Well, yeah, I guess so. Or rather, he turned back into a puppet or something. Wait, forget that. Where's the boob? The kid's bawling was so loud, all I caught was where's the boob? Whether the guy was trying to talk his way out of this or just begging for his life didn't really matter. Either way, he was a potential threat. Might be better to just finish him off quick. Black spikes. Dozens of iron thorns burst out in all directions, skewering the man from every angle. A flawless surprise attack. This was an underground room. Not just the floor, but the walls and ceiling were all rich with iron sand. The perfect environment for my magnetic magic. Sorry, bro. You'll have to look for boobs in your next life. This happened a little while ago. After stuffing the sack full of cheese down in the basement, I stumbled upon this weird hidden room. A hidden room? There was nothing in the room except a single stone coffin sitting smack in the center. So that's how it is they made it look like a food storage room, then used magic to conceal the entrance to this hidden space. Anyone wandering in would be too distracted by all the supplies to notice the real treasure hidden right behind them. And with how carefully it's all been hidden, there's no doubt about it. That coffin's gotta be packed with some crazy treasure. First things first, I needed to check around the stone coffin. Can't have any traps catching me off guard. There were several small holes lined up neatly along the side of the coffin. They were only about the size of a pinky finger, and even when I tried peering into one, it was pitch black inside. Maybe when I lift the lid, something like needles or spears or other sharp, pointy things will shoot out of these holes. Looks like a trap, but come to think of it, I have absolutely no idea how to disarm one. Well, for now let's just plug the holes with some cheese. If the cheese reacts somehow, I'll just dodge real quick. Still, hiding treasure inside a creepy stone coffin that looks like it should be holding a mummy. Must be something they really didn't want anyone to steal. Carefully, I placed my fingers on the stone lid. I'll just slide it slowly. If something weird happens, I'll stop right away. Huh. It felt stuck, like something was caught. I pressed my fingers down harder. Zsha, thud, crack. The stone lid suddenly slid open like a paper screen, slamming into the wall with a loud crash and splitting in half. Despite how heavy it looked, the lid turned out to be surprisingly light, so much so that I'd ended up using way too much force. Cheese looks normal. Phew, glad there weren't any traps. Now then, let's see what kind of treasure is hiding in here. Excited, I leaned in to peek inside. But what lay within wasn't gold, or silver, or jewels. It was a baby, a tiny, helpless infant. Hollow diamond. What a letdown. Seriously, a baby corpse inside a stone coffin. Come on, it's just exactly what it looks like. It's literally a coffin. What is this, a tomb? Was it the grave of someone important or something? Now that I think about it, didn't they say pyramids were royal tombs filled with treasure? But by the time they were discovered, grave robbers had usually already looted everything. All that was left was a mummy. So maybe this place got hit too, and that's why there's nothing here. But still, this isn't some ancient ruin or anything. It's just a regular village. Maybe they were just trying to preserve the body so it wouldn't rot. Even so, the corpse was in remarkably good condition. Had it been placed here recently? Looks like it's just sleeping. I gently poked the baby's soft, pudgy cheek with my fingertip. And the moment I did, color rushed back into its pale face, bringing it back to life, almost as if it had never been dead at all. The baby inhaled sharply, and then, as if making up for all the silence until now, let out a loud, full-throated cry. Whoa, wait, it's alive. What do I do? Panicking, I hurriedly scooped the baby into my arms and gave it a gentle shake. But far from calming down, its wailing only grew louder. Calm down. A baby cries for one of three reasons. They're tired, they need a diaper change, or they're hungry. No way it's sleepy after napping for who knows how long. So diaper. I lifted the baby up to head height and gave its little butt a good sniff. No strange smell. Hey, not bad. No bedwetting. You're a pretty impressive kid. That just leaves hunger, huh? Milk, wait, there's nothing in this room. I looked around, but there was absolutely nothing. If some grave robber actually made off with baby formula and diapers, they're a real piece of work. When I find them, they're getting punched. The baby in my arms started squirming, little fingers poking and fumbling at my pecs. Sorry, kid, I know my pecs are a decent size, but sadly, they don't produce milk. Trying to comfort the baby, I gave my pecs a little flex, made them dance a bit. Apparently, that wasn't what he wanted. The crying only got louder. Damn, no good. What we need now is boobs. Urgently. The baby's piercing cries echoed off the narrow stone walls of the underground room, turning the whole place into a deafening hell. How the hell could something this tiny have that much vocal power? As I stood there, utterly at a loss while holding the wailing baby in my arms, a voice suddenly called out from behind me. Who the hell are you? Oh, if he's come all the way down here, he must be connected to the baby. Maybe he's in charge of taking care of the kid. In that case, there's a chance he brought some milk. Whoa, you're a lifesaver. Hey, can you produce breast milk? Oh, crap, wait, not boobs, what was it again? Powdered milk. That probably won't make sense either, huh? But come on, anyone would get what I mean in this situation, right? Huh, the hell are you talking about? Like hell I can. Nope, didn't work, not even a little. He's looking at me like I've lost my damn mind. Bro, don't tell me you took down that Neburos. Neburos. Oh, you mean that creepy puppet guy? Well, yeah, I guess so. Or rather, he turned back into a puppet or something. Wait, forget that, where's the boob? This baby, isn't it one of yours? Why the hell am I, an outsider, more worried about the kid than you his own people? Wait, the baby, why not just hand him over to this guy? He didn't exactly look like the kid's dad, but it was probably better to return the baby to whoever he belonged to. Last thing I needed was to be mistaken for some kind of kidnapper. That thought had barely crossed my mind, when suddenly, with no warning whatsoever, the guy unleashed a spell in the middle of the tiny room. Black spikes, black thorns shot out toward me from the walls, the floor, even the ceiling. I instinctively wrapped the baby in my arms and turned to shield them from the incoming attack. Sorry, bro, you'll have to look for boobs in your next life. The moment the black spikes touched my skin, they lost all momentum and clattered harmlessly to the floor. Magic doesn't work on me, so of course I didn't take any damage, but that's not what pissed me off the most. What the hell's wrong with this guy? He launched an attack spell even though I'm holding a baby. You bastard, watch it, what if you'd hit the baby? I shouted, and the guy flinched hard, nearly jumping in surprise. What? Why you? How the hell is this happening? The baby went quiet for a moment, startled by the yelling. I gently stroked its head, set it back into the stone coffin, then turned to glare at the man. Hey, I can't just ignore child abuse. You're using violence, you don't even have boobs. You're a total failure as a dad. The hell, shut up, that kid ain't mine to begin with. And of course I don't have boobs, I'm a guy. The man cast another spell, but no matter how many times he tried, the result was the same. I charged straight through the incoming black spikes without flinching and closed in on him. No way, you're serious? He probably didn't expect me to ignore his attacks completely and come charging in like that. Caught off guard and forgetting to even defend himself, he froze up. And I thrust my fist forward in a straight line, aiming for his chest. What the? But just as my fist was about to connect, my whole body suddenly veered off course. And the next moment, I was repelled backward. See, it worked just fine. Damn, you got me sweating for nothing. Yeah, I'm a magnetic mage. Your punches can't reach me. Magnetic mage, so my fist got deflected by magnetic repulsion. It must have reacted to the iron in my gauntlet. That kind of force, it'd take some seriously strong magnetism to knock my punch off course like that. But if that's the case, then all I gotta do is take the armor off, right? Without wasting a second, I started stripping off every last piece of my light armor. It's a pain to put on by yourself, sure, but taking it off, that's a whole lot easier. Ha, nice. Ditching your gear, huh? I don't hate idiots like you. The man watched silently as I removed my equipment. He knows the fundamental rule, not attacking during a transformation, so, you liked Power Rangers too, huh? You seem awfully calm. Are you sure about that? Your magnetic powers won't work on me anymore. Now down to nothing but my underwear, I faced the man head on, puffing up my pecs for maximum effect. Why the pose? For intimidation, obviously. You're completely insane if you think you can stay that calm after stripping off everything. But fine, I'll show you what I've got. With a slightly exasperated look on his face, the man activated his magic. Liar's iron. A surge of black sand rose up from the ground with a loud whoosh, then swarmed toward the man, clinging to his body all at once. Magnetism doesn't work. Ha, like I give a damn. Come on, take a look. Bet you've never seen anything like this before. This is my secret weapon. In the blink of an eye, a pitch-black humanoid form took shape. Man, he kinda looks like that one guy from Venom. Sorry, but it does feel kind of familiar. Ha, don't give me that crap. This is my original spell, alright. Who the hell else could pull this off besides me? Apparently, I'd hit a nerve. He started ranting like crazy, but honestly, I couldn't care less. Listen up, the real genius of this spell is how the iron sand armor makes physical attacks almost completely ineffective. Yeah, physical attack immunity. Got it. As he passionately rambled on, I casually walked up to him and slapped him hard across the right cheek. Smack. His head snapped to the side, and he dropped to one knee. Holding his cheek, he looked up at me in pure disbelief. You bastard, I'm taking the time to explain this to you, and yet. But now you see, don't you? Your attacks can no longer. Yeah, they are. The iron sand on his right cheek crumbled away, revealing his bare skin underneath. Sure, the first hit might have been blocked, but once I touch it, the sand can't keep its shape. Also, he's on one knee, right? Doesn't matter how tough the outside is, if you rattle the brain, the damage still goes through. What did you do? What kind of magic user are you? He looked up at me from below, a mix of shock, despair, and confusion in his eyes. Not that it mattered, those puppy dog eyes of his weren't even a little bit cute. What kind of magic user? If I had to say, I guess right now, I'm a muscle mage. Yeah, right now, because eventually, I'm gonna master every kind of magic there is. Hollow diamond, Zore's pav, muscle magic, I've never heard of a mage like that before. No, wait, could he be one of those beastkin who use temporary physical enhancement spells? A muscle boost type, maybe. Is this guy part beastkin or something? That would explain that absurd physique of his. I'd heard that the kingdom of Sarthu had become more accepting of beastkin ever since the war. They're no longer treated as slaves like in the old days, and if they go through the proper channels, they can even do business as official citizens now. TCH, can't imagine anything like that ever flying in Packle. Given the circumstances, it wouldn't be surprising if half-bloods were around. But I didn't think one would actually be serving in the Night Order. Even if the kingdom had become more tolerant, I'd heard that beastkin still held a pretty low status. But if one had managed to infiltrate a royal Night Order directly under the king's command, that changes things. Could this be the reason why King Sarthu refuses to form an alliance? If the kingdom is already this saturated with beastkin, then declaring war on the empire could spark a rebellion from within. And if they've made it into the Night Order itself, suppressing that rebellion wouldn't just be difficult, it could lead to a full-blown coup. This intel might be worth something. But for that, first, I've gotta survive this. His legs were injured, he'd had to use up some of his expensive potions. At this rate, he thought he'd be walking away from this job empty-handed. But to think he'd stumble upon such valuable intel in a place like this. All that remained was to eliminate the target and wait out the annihilation spell. Conveniently enough, the engineers who'd hired him looked like they'd be wiped out by the annihilation spell. Just like the name promised. Lucky break, he sprang up, aiming a headbutt straight at the man's jaw. It would have been a clean hit if not for those absurdly thick arms blocking the way. But the real attack was only just beginning. Liar's iron wasn't just about defense. By skillfully switching between magnetic repulsion and attraction, it allowed him to strike faster and with greater force than usual. Aura, aura, aura. Thud, thud, thud. The dull impacts echoed throughout the cramped room. With ironclad defense and swift, powerful blows, nothing was more advantageous in close-quarters combat than this. He'd probably never been punched in the gut by a fist of iron before. Hell, he likely couldn't even imagine taking a physical blow from this close range. Not someone who called himself a proper knight. Knights moved in formation, firing off spells from a safe distance without pause. That was their job. They didn't live like mercenaries fighting on the front lines for scraps of coin, trading spell for spell, and when the mana runs dry, settling it with fists and blood. No, they wouldn't know that kind of fight. And that made everything experience, situation, condition work in my favor. Then why the hell isn't it working? Sweat beaded on Zore's forehead. Despite landing blow after blow, the man didn't move an inch. He didn't flinch. He didn't even make a sound. GHH, damn it, my fists hurt. He'd punched too much. At some point, the iron sand coating his knuckles had peeled away. Even so, the blows kept coming, driven by magnetism, almost automatically. And now, they were starting to deal serious damage to his own hands. GHH, my fists won't last much longer. Should I stop? No, it has to be working. He's not fighting back. That proves it. He's gotta be clenching his teeth, struggling to endure it with some desperate, twisted expression. He looked up at the man's face. A head taller than his own just to confirm. What he saw was a smile creeping across the bastard's face. And both arms spread wide. Why, you're smiling, what the he-ah? In that instant, those log-like arms wrapped tightly around Zore. No, calling it a hug was far too kind. Those thick arms wrapped around Zore locked his own in place, and the man's grip tightened around his waist like a vice. He couldn't budge an inch. Hey, cut it out, I'm not into this crap, alright. Let me go, you creep. Muscle magic, bear hug. Now think about what you've done, like a baby getting held tight. There's no way a hug this violent should be allowed. From deep within his body came the unsettling sounds of bones cracking and joints grinding. Liar's iron, offering no defense at all, crumbled apart and scattered across the floor. Can't breathe, this is bad. A few more seconds, and he felt like his organs might start spilling out of his mouth. Maybe his ribs would shatter first. Either way, if this kept up, he was going to die. Not good, I'm losing consciousness. His vision blurred as he looked around, desperate for a way out. With what little strength he had left, he forced out a hoarse whisper to cast his spell. Liar's iron. Too bad. That spell won't do anything. The iron sand at Zore's feet didn't budge an inch. Still, he continued casting, refusing to give in. GHH magnetic pull. Just as Zore finished his incantation, a black mass wrapped in iron sand shot out of the hidden room at blinding speed, soaring straight toward the basement exit. What the hell was that? Wait, were you trying to fling that chunk at me? Through the pain twisting his face, Zore managed a strained, triumphant smile as he spoke to the puzzled man. Hey what do you think just flew out of here? What do I know way? The man whipped around. The baby that had been lying in the stone coffin was gone. Hollow diamond. Hey wait, is that Yoicho? Yoicho, you alive over there? Jork and the others spotted Yoicho and Naru curled up on the forest floor. Naru was still unconscious, and from the looks of it, not in great shape. Let's at least get this down her throat. We should probably get Ares to heal her as soon as possible. Crimea forced a mana pill into Naru's mouth, then used water from her own mouth to help her swallow it. Naru was suffering from mana depletion and a wrist injury. And beyond that, her body showed signs of severe exhaustion from being pushed far beyond its limits. Hey, what are you doing here, Yoicho? Weren't you supposed to be with Helm and the others? Well, I was worried about Naru, so. HMPH. Honestly, someone like you, a commoner showing up here, isn't going to. Never mind. Guston fell silent, perhaps recalling his own failure earlier. The belief he'd long held that commoners were simply people to be protected was starting to crack. Hey, is it just the two of you? Wasn't there someone else? What about him? He said he was going back to the settlement to pick up something he forgot, and he hasn't come back yet. When Yoicho pointed toward the settlement, where black miasma still swirled in the air, Crimea felt her body go cold. No way, it can't be. What, Big Bro's in there? Why didn't you stop him, Yoicho? But I'm sorry. None of them had known that Beal was capable of using wide area magic. Even so, Yoicho couldn't help but blame himself for not stopping him no matter what. HMPH. Jork, don't go blaming him. Didn't the commander activate the spell because your scouting magic confirmed we'd all escaped? Huh, alright, damn it, sorry, Yoicho. This is my fault, Big Bro. I'm sorry. Surrounded by black miasma and lit by the eerie glow of a crackling thunder orb, Jork shouted toward the settlement, now a hellscape. Save the apologies for later. Check if he's safe now. Alright, okay, Big Bro, Big Bro, Big Bro, Big Bro. Jorcy's detection spell failed to pick up any trace of him. Either because he was underground or due to his magic-resistant resist trait. Damn it, I can't sense Big Bro's mana anywhere. Perhaps he's already been taken out. Guston's words landed like a blow, piling onto Jorcy's despair. There's no way that's true. Big Bro's a hero, there's no way he'd go down. Come to think of it, I couldn't see his mana earlier either. Earlier? You mean during that test? He was referring to the time when they were experimenting with Jorcy's detection magic to measure individual mana levels. Back then, Jork had noticed that Big Bro's mana alone didn't show up. He'd found it strange, sure, but with no time to dig deeper, he'd just shrugged it off with, well, it's Big Bro, so whatever. Wait, maybe he was resisting the detection spell. Yoicho muttered, the realization hitting him all at once. Resist, you say? HMPH. It's not impossible in theory. But to actually pull it off, you'd need mana on par with the commander or more. While Guston remained skeptical, Crimea silently recalled a moment. A time when Ares' healing magic had failed to work on him. Nullified by his unconscious resist. Generally speaking, unlike harmful spells, healing magic is said to be accepted unconditionally by the body. As an aside, some healers have exploited this property through sync connections to launch so-called healing overload attacks, a form of spell that forcibly regenerates otherwise healthy organs and tissues, pushing them past their natural limits and ultimately destroying them. For example, by accelerating the heartbeat, expanding the blood vessels, and pumping excessive blood into perfectly healthy eyes, the microvessels in the eyeballs rupture from the pressure, causing blindness. Compared to sync connections using other types of magic, healing spells are far more difficult to resist. Which makes this method all the more terrifying. And yet, even that kind of healing magic is nullified by his resist. That alone makes it more than plausible. He managed to resist healing magic even while unconscious. So I'm sure it's the same this time. He's definitely still alive. With those words, Crimea fixed her gaze on the settlement. Hollow Diamond. Beale's wide area spell, Sandstorm, was something he rarely used in front of others. But Crimea had seen it just once before. It had been during a year when the number of demon wolves had surged abnormally. The damage to livestock had become severe, and when their fangs finally turned on the villagers themselves, a large-scale subjugation force had been assembled. The first step was to assess the situation. Under Beale's command, a small team from the Night Order was dispatched to scout the demon wolves' den. In the valley where the demon wolves lurked, what they found was a pack far beyond their initial estimates, nearly 200 of them. For demon wolves, which typically moved in groups of 10 to 30, such numbers were highly abnormal. It was possible that several packs had merged together due to some unknown cause. Moreover, the demon wolves were so starved they had begun to turn on each other. It was only a matter of time before they descended upon the nearby villages. If they were allowed to scatter and attack multiple villages at once, it would be nearly impossible to respond in time. Judging the situation as critical, Beale informed his squad that they would eliminate the entire pack then and there. There's no way we can do this. A half-hearted attack against this any demon wolves would only make things worse. We should call for reinforcements, set up large-scale traps instead. It's fine. Don't worry, Crimea, leave it to me. It was the first time she had seen Beale's wide area spell, Sandstorm. Looking down into the valley, all she could see was a hellscape of demon wolves screaming and fleeing in terror. This wasn't a battle. It wasn't even a subjugation. It was extermination. Once caught within the black haze, there was no escape. The moment they touched it, the swirling sands would strip away their flesh. A death storm of dust and decay. That overwhelming, absurd power annihilated every last demon wolf. All of them, in mere moments. This is the commander's wide area magic. Until then, Crimea had only known Beale for his defensive spells and commanding ability. It was the first time she had witnessed his offensive magic. A force so immense, it truly lived up to the name of annihilation. She couldn't help but shudder. Before Crimea's eyes, the sandstorm was once again ravaging the settlement. This time on a scale far greater than what she had seen before. He's still alive, he has to be. There's no way I'm leaving him behind. Crimea, determined to rescue him, approached the edge of the settlement to get a closer look at the swirling black miasma. It looks thinner than before. He must have spread it wider, which made the haze less dense. Sure enough, the black haze surrounding the settlement was noticeably thinner than when it had been used to wipe out the demon wolves. It was because Beale had stretched his magic thin, spreading it wide and high in order to contain the thunder orbs as well. The thickness may be about the size of one person. If there's even a brief opening, I might be able to dash through. Crimea turned to look back at Guston and Jork, who had come along with her. Hey, you can use explosive magic, right? Could you try firing one at that haze for me? At that, yeah, I want it to go boom right before it hits the haze. He didn't understand what she was trying to do, but he had no intention of defying a full night. Following Crimea's instructions, Guston cast his spell and detonated it just before it reached the black haze. Blast! With a loud boom, the haze briefly dispersed under the force of the explosion. But it wasn't enough to see beyond it, and the black mist quickly filled back in. Huh, now that's the commander's magic for you. Not even Guston's spell can scratch it, huh? HMPH. I never claimed I could rival the commander. But hearing it from you still grates on me. Now. I didn't think a spell like that would be enough on its own anyway, so don't worry. Say, you can do a double boom attack, right? AS spell like that, huh? Yo, Guston, she's asking if you can do a double blast. Well, can ya? Half out of frustration, Guston unleashed a double blast at the haze. Boom, boom. For a brief moment, the black mist cleared just enough to reveal what lay beyond. But it lasted only an instant. Nowhere near long enough for someone to dash through at human speed. No good. At this rate, I'll definitely have to touch the haze. Hey, Crimea, what if I use my wind magic to give you a push from behind? Might be fast enough to slip through the gap, right? HMPH. Is your wind magic really that weak? Even a full knight would be injured if they took a proper offensive spell head-on. But Big Bro flew, didn't he? He's an exception. Don't lump normal people in with someone who can take a direct blast from me and walk it off. Oh, right. Jork hung his head, chastised. But surprisingly, Crimea gave a nod. Actually, I like it. It might just work. Halbus's Pav. Reinforce the barricade. Hurry, the haze is almost on top of us. Halbus's 6th Engineer Unit had come under attack by Beale and was forced to retreat from the main gate early on. They had taken shelter in the village chief's house, which they had been using as a temporary headquarters. Damn it, there's no way we can defend the entire outpost with firepower like that. The plan to wait for reinforcements and catch Beale in a pincer attack was no longer viable. And abandoning the outpost to retreat, that, too, was no longer an option. Now that they were surrounded by the haze, there was no escape. They had waited too long to make the call. All that remained now was to hold out no matter what and survive. He unleashed a spell of that magnitude. There's no way even the Annihilator has mana left after that. If they could just outlast this moment, there might still be a chance to strike back at the depleted Annihilator. Even if the 6th Engineer Unit were to be wiped out here, it would still serve to ease the battle for the main force arriving later. And that, in itself, would be enough. To that end, the course of action Halbus chose was simple. A full defensive formation. The longer the battle dragged on, the longer the Annihilator would have to pour mana into maintaining and controlling this wide area spell. Only 7 engineers remained, including Halbus. It was impossible to defend the entire settlement. But if all 7 of them focused on fortifying this one house and repaired each section as it began to collapse, they just might hold out. Listen up, the haze is closing in a spiral. Unless we're dead center, it won't hit us from all sides at once. Focus only on the walls that start to collapse, that's all we need to hold. The engineers turned pale as they watched the very wall they had reinforced crumble in an instant. And one of their comrades disintegrate into dust before their eyes. Seeing the fear on their faces, Halbus raised his voice to rally them. We've made it through worse than this. Remember our training, we can hold out. And yet, not a single one of the engineers responded. They followed Halbus's orders without a word, reinforcing the walls in silence. Not out of confidence, but to keep their minds off the fear closing in. It's coming. The west wall. A young engineer, pale-faced, shouted the report in a strained voice. They're coming. Get ready. Keep casting as long as you can breathe. 3 engineers worked together to cast the reinforcement spell, while the remaining 3 focused on chanting and building up their mana. They took turns firing spells in shifts, maintaining a constant cycle of wall generation and reinforcement. A tactic they called the double-layer magic rotation. The haze, it stopped. Why yeah, it's working. It's actually working. Even the black haze seemed to struggle against the rapidly forming earthen walls. Though it continued to creep forward, its advance had clearly slowed. Halbus, reinforcing the walls with support magic while barking out orders, raised his voice at full volume. Determined to seize this momentum. Even the Annihilator is just one mage in the end. And we are 7 strong, there is no attack we cannot withstand if we fight as one. This haze will fade eventually. All we have to do is hold out just until then. Hollow Diamond, Zore's Pav, thought I was actually gonna die there, damn it. My lungs wheezed with every breath, making a ridiculous whistling sound. Both arms were broken, completely useless, and I couldn't even sit up. Probably snapped something in my lower back too. The taste of rusted iron filled my mouth, spilling out no matter if I tried to swallow or spit. But still, I was alive. Zore had been one step away from climbing the stairs to the afterlife. But at the very last moment, a desperate idea had struck him. He had encased the baby in Liar's iron, then used magnetic force to launch the makeshift pod up and out of the underground. Just as he'd hoped, the man hastily released his crushing grip on Zore. Without a second thought, he rushed to save the baby, climbing the ladder to the surface in a frenzy. Seriously, he's not even the kid's dad. What's he so obsessed for? Not that I'm complaining, it SAED my ass. Right now, the rush of battle and the adrenaline masked the pain. But once it wore off, he knew the agony would hit him hard. Hard enough that he wouldn't be able to move an inch. I've gotta handle everything I still can right now. Zore once again cloaked his body in Liar's iron, this time to compensate for his injuries. If I just sit here, he'll come back eventually. And when he does, he'll finish the job for sure. I've gotta do something while I still can. Encased in Liar's iron, Zore moved with painful awkwardness as he reached for the ladder. He slowly pulled himself up just enough to peek above ground and locate the baby. The baby, still wrapped in pitch-black iron sand, was zipping around unpredictably. Propelled by magnetic forces Zore had haphazardly manipulated. The man was desperately chasing after it. Alright, good. He hasn't caught the kid yet. Then Zore noticed the black haze was right there, nearly upon them. Hey, what do you think he'll do if I send the kid straight into that haze? Hollow diamond, Jork sighed. Hey, Crimea, I know I'm the one who said it, but yeah, this might actually be impossible. It'll be fine. Didn't he go boom with wind magic and fly just fine? Boom, I really don't think it was that simple. Crimea proposed placing ice shield on her own back to convert the force of Jorcy's wind magic into pure propulsion. With that speed, the plan was to launch herself straight through the brief opening created by Guston's double blast. I mean, Big Bro could pull that off 'cause he's, you know, Big Bro. While Jork mumbled nervously, Crimea focused on finding the right timing. Shut up already. You're making me lose my nerve. Listen, this is a one-shot deal, so make sure your timing is perfect, got it? If you mess this up, I swear I'll haunt your bedside every single night. HMPH, seems there's no talking her out of it. Jork, make sure you time it right. I can't sleep with someone standing next to my bed, so don't screw this up. Yeah, I got this. I've got that ultimate pose you taught me, remember? Now I can cast in an instant. Though honestly, I don't think I'd mind having Crimea standing by my bedside every night. Guston channeled more mana than usual into his explosion spell, hoping the blast would clear as much of the haze as possible. Jork mentally rehearsed his ultimate casting pose, knowing even a tenth of a second's delay could mean the difference between life and death for Crimea. I'm going. With that, Crimea charged straight toward the haze. What the hell is that haze? It's magic, right? Buildings are straight up vanishing wherever it touches. Yeah, that's seriously bad news. I crawled up to the surface, chasing after the lump of iron sand I'd thrown outside the baby. What I saw waiting for me was a wave of black haze, closing in while erasing everything in its path. It was tearing through trees, walls, entire buildings. The black haze swept over them gently, yet left nothing behind. Like waves washing away sandcastles on a beach. No one would fire off a spell like that if they weren't a total idiot or had a death wish. Which means it's probably not the Picare army's doing. Then who the hell cast it? Wait, don't tell me Jork awakened some hidden power. It looks kinda like a tornado, so maybe it's wind magic. Nah, no way, that'd be ridiculous. I mean, there's no way that's true. But with Jork, you can't exactly say it's impossible either, and that's what's scary. Anyway, I chased after the baby with everything I had. But the damn thing kept zigzagging all over the place. And I just couldn't catch it. Hey, hold up, why the hell are you moving so much? I mean, is it really okay for a baby to be flying around like this before they even learn to crawl? No, there's no way this is okay. I saw a thing on TV once, shaken baby syndrome. Like, if a baby gets jolted around too hard, their brain cells get damaged and they can end up with oxygen deprivation or something. I've gotta catch him now. At that moment, I spotted a head poking out from the basement. It was that guy grinning at me with that same creepy smile. Then, he started chanting a spell. Magnetic pull. He still has that much energy. Then suddenly, the black lump, the baby, shot straight toward the haze. You've gotta be kidding me. Unlike me, who can resist magic, there's no way that baby could survive if it got swallowed by that thing. Even wrapped in iron sand, it wouldn't stand a chance. RRAAAAHHH. I ran like hell, pumping my heavy arms, kicking off the hard-packed dirt with bare feet, forcing my whole body to move at its absolute limit. Yeah, it hurt like hell, pebbles digging into my soles. But screw it, I don't have time to care. Big, muscular guys might seem slow at first glance. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Their legs aren't just for show. Anyone who regularly squats with over 450 pounds on their back, more than twice their body weight, has some serious lower body power. For example, there's a hammer thrower who weighs around 220 pounds. But can still run 100 yards in just over 10 seconds. In terms of explosive speed, even sprinters can't always top that. Reach it now. I dove with my whole body just like a player diving for a loose ball on the field. And just barely managed to get a finger on the iron sand baby. Snatching it up, I tucked it like a football and rolled backward. However, the black haze was already right in front of me. Shit, it's already right in front of me. There's no time to regain my footing. No time to get back to safety. Ow, 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 ow. Damn it. The haze swallowed my legs up to the shins almost instantly. I could feel tiny grains slamming into my skin like being hit with sand at high speed. The haze itself didn't affect me, probably because it was magical. But all the rubble it had torn up earlier got picked up in the wind, and now it was pelting me like a damn sandstorm. At this point, all I could do was curl up around the baby, shielding it from the haze with my own body. NGHHHHH. Whoever did this, I swear I'm gonna make you pay. Letting out a furious roar, I dropped flat against the ground and was swallowed by the black haze. Hollow diamond. Ha 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 ha. I did it. I freaking did it. Zore trembled with joy as he watched the man get swallowed by the Annihilator's magic. It had all been a gamble. Getting the man to chase after a baby he didn't even know. Controlling the iron sand shell by instinct alone, without being able to see it. Betting that even after witnessing the haze's destructive power, the man would still go after the child. Each one of those choices was a long shot. But it seemed luck was on Zore's side today. Furthermore, Zore fine-tuned his magnetic magic, keeping the baby just barely within the man's reach. If the child had reached the haze too quickly, the man might have given up. But if it had been too slow, the baby could have escaped the haze entirely. Never had a battle drained me this much just from controlling my magic. But damn, this level of payoff. Best I've ever had. All that was left was to wait out the haze from inside the basement. If he sealed the entrance with iron sand, he should be fine. That brat really came in handy. Looks like Neburos saved my ass this time. Zore suddenly shut his mouth. He focused his ears and narrowed his eyes toward the haze. What was that? Am I just imagining things? The haze was dim, but not completely opaque. Zore could still make out the outlines of buildings being swallowed up. Watching them crumble inside the haze was what made him grasp, in a very real way, just how terrifying the Annihilator's magic truly was. And in that very haze, something was moving. This couldn't be happening. No, it shouldn't be happening. Zore gripped the ladder tightly without even realizing it. His body was trembling. No more than that. His teeth were chattering uncontrollably. Was this fear? I'm a mercenary. We go from country to country. Getting mixed up in a nation's dark side isn't unusual. In fact, it's part of the job. And if we're hired, we reach into that darkness ourselves. Doesn't matter if it's the West or here. It's all the same. I've seen plenty of death. And I've always known I won't get a clean death myself. But I was never afraid. Because I've always accepted death as part of the deal. Doesn't matter if you're some pampered noble, or a guy like me who grew up digging through trash. In this world, anyone can die from a surprise hit. The Annihilator's magic, yeah, it's the real deal. A storm of sand that shreds through everything, ignoring defensive spells. Stone, walls, homes, people, doesn't matter. It swallows it all up and erases it. Pure despair, just like the rumors said. But forget all that. None of it matters right now. What does matter is why the hell my body won't stop shaking. Why the hell are you still standing in there? When do people feel fear? Perhaps when a gun is pressed to their temple. Or when they come face to face with a headless soldier that still keeps attacking. Those would certainly be enough to make most people tremble. But those moments alone aren't the true essence of fear. People don't fear the gun itself, they fear what lies beyond it. Death is something only the dead can understand. Heaven, hell, or eternal nothingness, no living soul knows what comes after. It's the unknown future looming ahead that truly terrifies us. Likewise, it's not the headless soldier itself that's frightening, but the fact that it defies expectation. That something believed to be dead and motionless still moves. What shakes people to their core isn't what they see, it's that what they see shouldn't be. In short, most people fear the unknown. They fear what lies beyond the boundaries of their understanding. They don't fear darkness because it's dark, they fear it because they can't see what's inside. The unknown, the incomprehensible, the irrational. These are what inspire true fear. Even Zore, a mercenary who had walked countless battlefields, was no exception. What the hell are you? Why won't you just die? Zore, who had witnessed more deaths than he could count, was certain. That man had died. He had killed him. And yet the man still stood in the midst of the raging black haze, maintaining a human form. That alone was beyond comprehension. But the man kept moving. He kept murmuring something. Who could witness such a thing and not feel fear? Impossible. Zore knew exactly how absurdly powerful the Annihilator's magic was. He had seen it firsthand, how it turned the wall built by the 6th Engineer Unit to dust. As if it had merely brushed against it. That wall had been strong enough to withstand continuous bombardment from multiple squads. And yet it had disintegrated instantly. The moment Zoré saw that, he abandoned all thought of resistance. He ran because he knew there was no way to fight back. Zoré had always been the kind to assess a situation instantly, deciding whether to fight or flee. And this time, his instincts told him to run. In a way, that decision was born out of absolute trust in the Annihilator's power. Turning such overwhelming force into a weapon was a tactic only someone as cunning as Zoré could attempt. And yet, even within that storm of annihilation, the man was still alive. "Why, you monster!" Overcome with unspoken dread, Zoré fired spell after spell into the haze. Half unconsciously, even though his mana reserves were running dangerously low. Black spikes, black spikes, black spikes. It's said that when someone kills for the first time, they tend to keep attacking well beyond what's necessary. Unable to tell whether their target is truly dead. How much damage would it take to kill that thing? Perhaps Zoré was feeling the exact same way. But none of his attacks landed. Every spell was blocked by the haze. He had intended to use the haze to kill the man. Yet now, ironically, it was shielding him. Damn it, damn it, then how about this black lance? Deciding that spells were pointless, Zoré switched to a direct assault. He held a long spear forged from iron sand. If he kept generating more while thrusting forward, maybe he could reach. But the moment he raised his spear, a deafening crack of thunder and blinding light erupted from above. Crack boom, crack krrak crack! Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. That was the moment when Beel's sandstorm finally collided with the Emperor of Thunder, Indra. Hollow Diamond, the Thunder Dragon, coiled and restless within its confined sphere, had waited. Eager for release. Now, at last, Beel's magic struck the shell. Magic can be neutralized by opposing elements, but only if the opposing spell has equal or greater power. Conversely, even if the elements don't oppose each other, a spell charged with overwhelming mana can sometimes consume another. It's like extinguishing a campfire. You can pour water on it but too little water, and the fire won't go out. Blowing on it might make the fire grow unless the wind is strong enough to snuff it out entirely. Magic works the same way. Although Indra was formed by layering mid-tier lightning spells, there was a vast difference between Naru's mana and Beel's. Naturally, Sandstorm should have suppressed and consumed Indra completely. However, within the earth stirred by Sandstorm was a large amount of iron sand. Deliberately gathered by Zoré, that detail triggered something unexpected. Instead of being erased by Sandstorm, Indra fused with it. The entire event lasted less than a minute. In the blink of an eye, the Thunder Dragon rampaged through the storm. Blinding lightning streaking through clouds of swirling iron sand. It was only a moment. But the devastation it caused was overwhelming. Crack krrak. Crack krrak. Within the sandstorm, Indra exploded, splitting into countless lightning dragons that scattered in every direction. Buildings untouched by the haze were struck, set ablaze, and shaken to the ground. Pillars of fire erupted, the earth quaked, and in the middle of it all stood Zoré clad in conductive liar's iron, his iron spear still raised high. There was no way he could have survived. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. A bolt hit him dead on. His body, acting as a lightning rod, absorbed the full force of the blast. Even though Indra had split, this wasn't some weakened lightning spell like the one Naru had cast while wearing the bracelet of suppression. And Zoré wasn't thinking clearly. He was paralyzed by fear. Then again, even if he had been thinking straight, it wouldn't have mattered. Guag hhhh. The bolt carried over 100 million volts. Roughly a million times stronger than standard household electricity. It tore through his body in an instant. The liar's iron armor twisted and warped from the heat, glowing red as it dripped off him in molten globs. The stench of seared flesh filled the air. Smoke poured from his blackened body. His one exposed eye had turned to charcoal, cloudy and pale like the boiled white eye of a fish pulled from open flame. Craash. Zoré's smoldering form collapsed, falling limply back into the underground. I'm going in. As Crimea dashed forward and dove into the haze, Guston unleashed his spell at the exact same moment. Double blast explosion. Jork had planned to wait a beat before casting wind magic on Crimea's back. But before he could, he noticed something strange about the haze. In a split-second decision, he redirected the spell from her back to the center of the blast. Something's wrong. Crimea, air hammer. Boom, boom. Kya. Crimea was blasted off her feet and sent tumbling through the air. Guston's blast spell had produced a much larger explosion than expected. Amplified by Jorcey's wind magic. Why you okay? OWW. Her light armor was in tatters, with more than a fuse pots now fully exposed. But thankfully, Crimea seemed more or less unharmed. Jork, why did you miss on purpose? Guston grabbed him by the collar, shoving him back. Crimea could have died, and Guston had nearly killed a comrade with his own spell. His anger was understandable. Take a look over there. HMPH. What of it? What could have possibly distracted you enough to screw up? Crack crack, crack crack. As Guston turned to look, he saw it, the exact moment when the haze made contact with the lightning sphere. A blinding white flash tore across the sky, followed by a deafening boom. The ground trembled beneath them, and arcs of lightning crackled through the swirling haze. That moment Naru's lightning and the commander's spell overlapped. It felt seriously bad, so I reacted on instinct. Sorry. This is. Whoa, if I'd charged in like that, I'd definitely be dead right now. As the three of them stared in stunned silence, the thunder dragon raged for a while within the haze. After its frenzy had run its course, the lightning began to fade. And with it, the haze gradually thinned as well. Are they canceling each other out? I doubt the commander's magic is on the same level as that girl. Then maybe big bro, HMPH, you really overestimate him. What do you even take him for? Hollow Diamond. Halbus and the members of the 6th Engineer Unit were doing everything they could to hold back Beel's magic. It was the same spell that even an experienced mercenary like Zore had deemed impossible to defend against. And yet, they were still holding the line. That alone spoke volumes about the unit's capability. We can do this. Maintain the pace. Even if you're coughing up blood, don't stop chanting. To an outsider, it might have looked like they were holding the line. But no one was more aware than the engineers themselves. That the position of each newly formed earth wall was gradually being pushed back. Damn it, we're getting pushed back even with this many men. How much mana does he have? How much longer could they hold out before this hellish pressure finally let up? Unease, urgency, and fear gnawed away at the engineers' focus and stamina. Not yet. Hurry, my comrades, please hurry. Halbus and his men could do nothing now, but endure and pray for the main force to arrive in time. Amid the near-silent, relentless work, one of the engineers muttered under his breath. Hey, is it just me, or is the haze getting thinner? The haze is thinning. Yeah, I'd sure like to believe that. No, he's right, it really is thinning. It is. It's definitely getting lighter. The engineers, who had been chanting like lifeless ghosts, suddenly lit up with hope on their faces. It might have been no more than an illusion. But the haze did seem ever so slightly thinner than before. A change so subtle, it could have been nothing at all. And yet, for the engineers drowning in despair, that minuscule shift was enough to spark a flicker of hope. Hey, if you've got the breath to talk, use it to chant. One of the senior engineers raised his voice, trying to quiet the murmuring troops. But Halbus raised a hand to stop him, silently shaking his head. No, let them be. This is the critical moment. Get every last mana recovery potion ready and have everyone drink. High-grade mana recovery potions were only allotted a few per squad. But even so, sharing them in small doses should be enough to restore at least a bit of everyone's mana. What we need now is resolve and hope. The spell will end soon. If we endure this, gentlemen, we'll go down as the engineer unit that withstood even the Annihilator's assault. Just a little more, hold the line. Yeah, the engineers roared in unison, their spirits reignited. If they survived this battle and made it back home, they'd be hailed as heroes. After all, they were the ones who had withstood the Annihilator's magic. Hey, Senpai, if we actually manage to hold this off, doesn't that make our earth walls tougher than iron wall? Yeah, I guess it does. So what comes after that, What's tougher than iron wall? A perfect wall. Didn't know you were the scholarly type. Okay, now you're overselling it. Could a shift in mindset truly change people so drastically? The engineers' morale had soared. A stark contrast to just moments ago. They were even cracking jokes. But that fleeting sense of hope was about to be crushed in an instant. Crackle, crack crack crack. Ga, gee ak gee ah. Suddenly, a blinding flash ripped through the haze with a sound like tearing air. In that instant, the three engineers closest to the wall froze mid-motion. Then collapsed to the ground, one after another. Hey, come on, this isn't the time to be screwing around. Panicked engineers rushed over to check on their fallen comrades. only to collapse themselves, one after another. What's going on here? Before Halbus, now the only one left standing, white smoke began rising from the bodies of the fallen engineers. Then, with a dull pop, the smoke ignited, and pillars of fire burst upward from their scorched forms. Electroshock. The stench of burnt flesh filled the back of his throat. With nothing left to stop it, the haze engulfed the burning engineers and reduced them to ash. Left with no one left to command, Halbus dropped to his knees and stared up at the sky. So this is the end for us. Everything from here on I leave to you, my comrades. With that final cry entrusted to allies who would never come, Halbus was swallowed by the advancing haze. Crimea stood in stunned silence, watching as the haze slowly began to lift. Beel's magic had disappeared just before it could swallow the entire settlement. But that didn't mean the village was unharmed. The fusion of two powerful wide-area spells, even if brief, had left deep scars across the land. The ground, now reduced to a desert of sand, was etched with vivid, snowflake-like patterns stretching out from the warehouse area. Likely the trails left behind by lightning strikes. The defensive walls and watchtowers that had once protected the settlement were completely gone. What remained of the buildings still smoldered, buried in rubble. Nothing had retained its original form. Jork and Gustin had never seen Beel's sandstorm spell in person before. As the scale of the destruction slowly became clear, they could only stand there, dumbstruck. There's nothing left. So this is the commander's power. Just one spell did all this. Gustin had always considered the Third Night Order to be far inferior to the First. But now, a single spell from their commander had shattered that belief. Man, and here I thought the commander was just some grumpy old guy who barely said a word. Maybe I've been overestimating my own strength this whole time. Gustin had believed in noble supremacy. The idea that powerful nobles should protect powerless commoners. But the truth, he hadn't been able to do anything. He couldn't find Naru after she was kidnapped. He couldn't infiltrate the village. He couldn't even break through the reinforced wall. And when it came time to fight the magnetic mage, he was the one being protected by Crimea, a commoner. Justice without strength accomplishes nothing. I need to become stronger. No matter what. As the sky gradually brightened, Gustin clenched his fist. Beside him, Jork stepped up to stand with him. So I guess it's over, right? Crimea's still worried, but Big Bro's probably fine. Really though, having you around this time was a huge help, Gustin. Was that supposed to be sarcasm? Huh, sarcasm. I didn't do anything useful out there. The comment hit harder than Jork had meant it to. Jorcy's detection magic had been essential. Without it, they never would have made it through the forest in the dark. But what had he done? Nothing. Not a damn thing. And now he was being told, you were a big help. Coming from a commoner, it felt like pity. And Gustin couldn't stand it. What are you talking about, Gustin? You showed me that special pose, right? That's how I was able to cast faster. We only got through that wall because of you. HMPH. You really believe that? I didn't teach you because I cared. I just thought you'd be useful. Back then, he'd only given Jork the tip to pull off their diversion plan. It wasn't about kindness. It was strategy. Sure, there'd been a bit of hesitation about relying on a commoner. But in battle, you use every tool you've got. This wasn't training. This was war. And if even a lowly pawn had the potential to become a queen, then guiding it was the smart move. Still, even so, Gustin, you know what kind of looks I've gotten all my life, right? You never seemed like the type to care. Well, yeah, I don't. Jork laughed loudly, scratching his head. He'd always been seen as the joke of the squad. No one ever approached him. No one ever gave him real advice. Well, maybe a few did. He just never listened. We never really had anyone in our squad who could use real offensive magic anyway. And no one ever got how I felt. How you felt. Yeah, everyone kept trying to teach me these mumbly, creepy-sounding chants. But come on, a hero's gotta sound cool, right? Even the chants gotta have style. Seeing Gustin's look of disbelief, Jork scratched his head again, sheepishly. I know. My chant takes forever, but it was the only cool way I knew how to cast spells. And you're saying I gave you a better one? Totally. That changed everything. I've grown so much on this mission. For the first time, I feel like I can actually see the path to becoming a hero. It's all thanks to Big Bro and you, Gustin. A hero, huh? Well, do your best. Come to think of it, there were stories of commoners being granted noble titles. After distinguished service on the battlefield, Gustin glanced sideways at Jork. A future noble, huh? If that's how I look at it. Standing next to a commoner doesn't seem so bad. Before he realized it, his frustration had faded. Hollow diamond. Meanwhile, Crimea was filled with regret. She wished she'd told Kyle to keep him out of the mission. Back then, why couldn't I just say, it's too soon. He's not ready yet. The truth was, when Kyle had said he'd include him in combat training, Crimea had agreed right away. She and Ert had been excited at the thought that he might be accepted into the Night Order if the results were good. Because he had fought with them against the Picare army, they'd placed too much hope in him. They hadn't even stopped to consider that he still couldn't use a single spell. As the haze and night slowly lifted, Crimea searched the ruins for any sign of him, clinging to the faintest hope. That's when she spotted something odd. In an otherwise flat area of land, a single mound of black sand stood out, raised, trembling slightly. And for a moment, it lined up perfectly in her mind with the image of his back, the one she remembered from when he had fallen while protecting Ert. Exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Crimea tore off her damaged chestplate and took off running without a word. Hey, it's still dangerous. Where are you? Wait, is that? Gustin froze in disbelief. Then Jork, grinning ear to ear, clapped him hard on the shoulder. Ow, what the hell, Jork? Still smiling, Jork kept his eyes on the direction Crimea had run. Remember what you said earlier, Gustin? What do you even think he is? Well, I'll tell you what. He puffed out his chest. He's a hero. With that, Jork ran after Crimea. I guess a lot of time has passed. I sat around the campfire with everyone, pressing a chunk of ice against my swollen, reddened cheek. The starlight that had once shimmered above us had grown faint, and the surrounding landscape was now clearly visible. We were in a clearing carved out from the forest. A space so out of place, it felt like someone had cut a chunk out of a desert and pasted it here. No one would ever believe a settlement had existed here just a short while ago. Back then, when I was swallowed up by the mist along with the baby, the first thing I did was, of course, digging. To protect the baby from the mist, I had to cover it completely. But no matter how big my body was, there would always be gaps. And the mist could seep in through them. With one foot plunged into the mist, I scraped at the ground with both hands. I wasn't digging a pitfall this time. All I needed was a small hollow, just big enough to hide the baby. And since my hole digging skills were practically master class, it didn't take me long at all. Alright, just hang in there for a bit, okay. I laid the baby down in the hollow and covered it by lying flat over the top, using my own body as a lid. It might smell a little sweaty, but the kid would have to tough it out. Hey, it's not like I'm old enough to smell like an old man yet. As the mist completely enveloped my body, tiny fragments of shattered walls and buildings crackled against me, digging into my skin. And damn, it hurt. It felt like getting every stray hair plucked out at high speed with a pair of tweezers. Thinking back to my days of hitting up the hair removal salon made it a little more bearable. But yeah, it still sucked. OWWW, I'm gonna rip out that guy's hair later, every last strand. Maybe he heard my muttered grudge, because the magnetic mage started launching attacks at me. Well, not that they were getting through. His magic was swallowed up by the mist one after another before it could even reach me. Still, why was he freaking out so much? He was supposed to be the one with the upper hand. Ah, I get it. He's absolutely terrified of me ripping his hair out. You only realize how much something matters after you lose it. You might regret not taking care of it sooner, but by the time you notice, it's already too late. I'm talking about hair, by the way. He must already be dealing with hair loss. That's why he's so desperate, thinking, no way am I letting him rip out even more. Yeah, that's gotta be it. Damn it, how about this? Black spear. Losing what little composure he had left, the magnetic mage let out a wild scream and raised what looked like a long spear into the air. No, that's not gonna work either. Even I understood that anything and everything gets pulverized inside this mist. Seriously, has that guy learned nothing? If he really wanted to hit me, he should have attacked from the ground, where the mist couldn't interfere. Though, well, I'd just resisted anyway. Right after that, the black mist swirling around me suddenly began to glow brightly. A barrage of flashing lights, like I'd been dropped into the middle of a gaudy casino neon display, overwhelmed me, and I instinctively squeezed my eyes shut. Crack, 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 crack. blinding flashes and deafening roars. It felt similar to the lightning magic Naru had blasted me with before. Except the tingling sensation across my skin was far stronger and lasted way longer this time. When I opened my eyes again, I saw a single charred mage collapse helplessly into the ground. It looked like Naru's lightning bolt had struck inside the mist. And thanks to the conveniently placed lightning rod, aka the magnetic mage, most of the electricity had been drawn toward him instead. Whoa, damn, talk about getting what he deserved. That's what you get for using a baby for something so cruel. The magnetic mage's armor of sand iron was scorched bright red. And his exposed face was horribly burned, white smoke rising from his mouth. From the look of him, I didn't even have to do anything. His hair was already toast. Oh, looks like the mist starting to thin out. The force of the sand and gravel hitting my skin had weakened. The mist still swirled around, but since anything that touched me was being nullified, it must have been gradually dispersing. After a while, the mist cleared, and even the roaring sound of the wind began to die down. Until finally, silence settled over the area. The baby under my belly was surprisingly quiet. Maybe it had fallen asleep. Well, after crying that much, it was no wonder. Apparently, bawling your lungs out actually takes a lot of energy, and even more so if you're hungry. Alright, I still haven't given it milk. I mean, boobs. How long can a baby's stamina even last? He's sleeping, right? I mean, there's no way, but peeking down at the baby beneath me and mumbling, "Hang in there, little guy." I spotted the faint rise and fall of his belly. And with a huge wave of relief, I finally let out a breath and looked around again. No way, everything's gone. The houses, the warehouses. All the buildings that had been standing just a little while ago had vanished without a trace. Even the ones the mist hadn't reached yet were up in flames. Meaning there was nowhere left to search for food for the baby. This was bad, really bad, and I had absolutely no idea how to even start fixing it. Does this mean I have to produce boobs myself? Men actually have mammary glands too. Apparently, there are rare cases where guys can produce milk from their chests. Rare, but still, guess I've got no choice. It's not about whether it'll come out or not. I'll just have to squeeze it out. Just as I steeled myself and grabbed a firm hold of my pecs, I heard a voice from the forest. And when I looked, someone was running toward me. Geez, you're always doing such reckless things. It was Crimea, tears glistening in her eyes. She sprinted straight toward me. And honestly, I think it's only natural that my gaze got completely locked onto her bouncing, glorious assets. I mean, come on. The solution to all my problems was literally running straight at me. Seeing Crimea running toward me with tears in her eyes, I raised my voice loud enough for the limp baby to hear. Boobs. Yes, the boobs are here. Smack. A sharp, dry slap echoed through the ruins of the settlement. And startled by the sound, a large bird took off from a nearby tree, flapping wildly into the sky. There really was a baby. As soon as Crimea heard the situation from me, she practically snatched the baby out of my arms and held it close. Then, without missing a beat, she started barking out orders. Telling Jork to set up a campfire and Guston to boil some water. Hey, do you have anything to wrap him in? Ah, give me that cloak. What? That's made from Margan Maine, it's top quality ah. Without giving him any say, Crimea tore the cloak right off Guston and wrapped the newborn snugly inside it. By the way, a Margan is a giant, goat-like magical beast that lives only in the highlands. Its materials are highly prized for their ability to insulate against both heat and cold. Though apparently, its meat is tough and tastes terrible. Come on, build up the fire more. Use wind magic like before, just blast it. Crimea started dissolving emergency rations into the hot water. Once it was ready, she cooled it down to body temperature using ice magic. Then soaked a cloth in it and brought it to the baby's mouth. The baby immediately latched onto the cloth, sucking on it eagerly with little NKU sounds. Crimea had learned back in her orphanage days that while this method couldn't fully replace breast milk, it was enough to prevent dehydration and provide basic nutrition. I'm so glad he drank it. Relieved, Crimea plopped down on the ground. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she hastily conjured a fist-sized chunk of ice and casually tossed it at my feet. Ice. When I gave her a suspicious look, Crimea just pointed at my cheek with a sharp HMPH. And immediately went back to fussing over the baby. Hollow diamond. Big bro. Yelling. Boobs. at Crimea after she came running all worried about you. That's just not right, man. Jork said that as he tossed me his cloak. And thank God. After that sandstorm earlier, my underwear was basically on its last legs, completely useless at this point. It's not like I meant it that way. I just maybe I was a tiny bit short on words, that's all. HMPH. To think Crimea risked her life to save you, and the first thing she hears is, boobs. Seriously, I feel bad for her. Apparently, Crimea had pulled some serious stunts to rescue me when I got left behind. And yeah, her gear was all torn up, which definitely made her chest look even more, prominent. It's not like I could help it. You should really apologize properly, bro. I did apologize. Gustin shrugged with a weary sigh. HMPH. Words alone are meaningless. In situations like this, it's customary to offer a gift. A gift. So there's a custom in this world where you bring a gift when you apologize. Well, thinking about it, even back home in Japan, it wasn't that weird to bring something when visiting to say sorry. Maybe I should bring cookies or something. What's the standard apology gift around here, anyway? Ah, perfect. I found a big chunk of cheese down in the basement earlier. Crimea might not look it, but she's actually got a pretty big appetite. I still remember when we first met. She stuck me with a mountain of wild boar meat. Good times. Hey, hold on, who the hell gives someone a random chunk of found cheese as an apology gift? Seriously, if you're giving something to a woman, go for jewelry. Something cheap, like earrings around 50,000 nils. 50,000 nils. That's way out of my league for an unemployed guy like me. The money sense between Gustin the rich guy and me the jobless nobody was just too different to even have a real conversation. Hey, big bro, my sister used to say if you show you're sincere, just grabbing a meal together is enough. Oh, really? Man, Jork, your sister must be super popular. Yeah, she was always going out to eat with different guys. She must have been real popular, huh? I couldn't help but feel a little stuck on the different guys part. But well, if it's just a meal, even I might be able to manage that somehow. If I explain the situation to Ubin, maybe he'll hook me up with some kind of job. Crimea was a little ways off, gently rocking the baby after feeding him. After taking that slap earlier, I had immediately rushed to explain everything while showing her the baby. So I was pretty sure I'd cleared up the misunderstanding. Probably, the fact that she was still keeping a bit of distance. Yeah, that had to just be my imagination, right? I cautiously approached Crimea from behind, who was muttering something to the baby as she cradled him, and nervously called out to her. Crimea. Whoa, you scared me. Did you hear that? You didn't hear just now, right? Sorry, I didn't catch it. See, there's a ton of sand stuck in my ears from that sandstorm earlier. It's fine, it's better if you didn't hear it. What is it? It was rare to see Crimea this flustered. I couldn't help but wonder what she'd been saying. But first, I had to apologize. I heard from Jork. He said you did some pretty dangerous stuff to save me. So, sorry. Well, part of it was our fault too, for not managing the personnel properly, so. Boo it. Crimea shot me a sharp glare from below and immediately launched into a rapid-fire lecture. You can't just sneak into enemy territory all by yourself. You still can't even use magic, you know. It turned out okay this time because you could nullify the commander's spell with resist. But if even one thing had gone wrong, I'm sorry. So, this probably isn't enough to make up for it, but after training, let me treat you to a meal or something, okay Crimea? Peering at her, I saw Crimea suddenly fall silent, lost deep in thought. You actually nullified the commander's full power spell with resist. Oh, that black mist was Beel's magic. I thought it was some kind of wind magic, but it was earth magic. Neat, I see. So it wasn't some desperate, suicidal magic from the Picare guys after all. Just what are you? What did you say? Sorry, my ears are still kinda messed up from earlier. Thanks to that sandstorm, I couldn't quite catch Crimea's muttered words. Seriously, does anyone have a damn ear pick or something? It's nothing. Anyway, about the meal actually, there's somewhere I'd rather go with you than just eat. Oh, sure, if it's somewhere you want to go, Crimea, I'm totally down. Crimea knew about my situation. No way she'd pick somewhere expensive. Or maybe she was even trying to be considerate. thinking I couldn't even afford the cost of a meal. Then after training, would you go to the church with me? Sure. Wait, the church? You mean the church, where the gods are? What's going on? Did I do something so bad I need to confess or something? And no way. Is this a, you have to take responsibility kind of thing? Geez, the temple where Lady Freeril resides is in the capital. The churches are where we spread her teachings and receive her words. Oh, really? Well, if it's somewhere you want to go, Crimea, then it's totally fine by me. Right, they did say the gods actually exist in this world. There's no way a bunch of churches all over the place would each have a god hanging around. Then it's a promise. Oh yeah, smiling while holding the baby. Crimea looked just like the image of the Virgin Mary I'd once seen in a painting. And somehow, it made me feel incredibly self-conscious. There, is your little tummy all full now? Hee hee, look at these squishy cheeks. The baby, with his tiny belly round and full, looked completely satisfied. Taking care of a little one like this made her ache to see the younger children back at the orphanage and Shen as well. But most likely, this child wouldn't be placed in the government-run orphanage where she and Erto had lived. He would probably end up at a church orphanage in the slums instead. A church orphanage, she hadn't heard many good things about those places. Maybe I should talk to Shen and see if there's any way we can take him into ours. Still, earlier, when he suddenly came at me stark naked, I ended up slapping him out of reflex. But seriously, he needs to think about the time and place before saying things like that. Wait, no, saying it like that makes it sound like it would be okay if he did pick the right time and place. Crimea blushed furiously at her own words, only for a voice to suddenly call out from behind her. Crimea, whoa, you scared me, did you hear that? You didn't hear just now, right? Startled by his sudden appearance, Crimea reflexively hugged the baby tightly against her chest. The person she'd just been having such embarrassing thoughts about had shown up out of nowhere. There was no way she could look him in the eye, as her gaze flailed about in panic. Her eyes suddenly met the innocent, wide-eyed stare of the baby. Only then did Crimea finally begin to calm down. It's fine, it's better if you didn't hear it. What is it? Good, it looked like he hadn't heard anything. That could have caused a major misunderstanding. Right, more importantly, there were plenty of things she needed to say to him. Sneaking into enemy territory without even being able to use magic, that's way too dangerous. As his big sister figure, I'm definitely going to give him a proper lecture. You can't just sneak into enemy territory all by yourself. You still can't even use magic, you know. It turned out okay this time because you could nullify the commander's spell with resist. But if even one thing had gone wrong, as she scolded him, Crimea glanced at the sand-covered cloak wrapped around his waist, and suddenly realized something. Wait, he said earlier that his ears were clogged with sand from the sandstorm, right? That means he wasn't outside the mist. He was inside it. The commander's sandstorm had ended rather abruptly this time. Then again, with an area that wide, even for the commander, it might have been difficult to completely maintain it. That would explain why the center of the settlement had been affected by Emperor of Thunder, Indra, but showed no signs of the sandstorm's damage. She had assumed his magic had simply dissipated before the storm could swallow him. But seeing the state he was in now, that didn't seem to be the case at all. You actually nullified the commander's full power spell with resist. A cold sweat trickled down Crimea's back. There shouldn't be anyone in the kingdom. No, probably not even on the entire continent, who could nullify the commander's full power magic with resist. To completely negate a spell, one would need to overwhelmingly surpass the caster's magical power. One drop of poison in the vast ocean has no meaningful effect. That was how the concept of magic nullification resist had been explained in school. Even a poison strong enough to kill hundreds would become harmless when diluted in the sheer volume of the sea. The same principle applied to magic. Of course, that was just a simplified metaphor to make it easier to understand. In reality, even a much smaller difference in magical power could allow for resist to succeed. Still, it wasn't something that could happen with just a slight advantage. The commander's magical power ranked among the very highest in the kingdom. To overpower it, would require magic beyond the reach of any human. The realm of gods. What are you, really? The words slipped from her lips before she could stop them. And she hastily clapped a hand over her mouth. What am I doing? He had been abandoned in the mountains as a cursed child. surviving all alone against impossible odds. If anyone cared more about who he was, it would be him. Huh, what did you say? Sorry, my ears are still kinda messed up. Tilting his head like he was trying to drain water out of it. He hopped around on one foot, patting at his ear to shake the sand loose. Seeing that ridiculous sight, Crimea felt her heart finally settle. There was absolutely nothing about him that resembled some being beyond human comprehension. Yeah, no matter who or what you turn out to be, I'll never abandon you. That's a promise. As your big sister, it's nothing. Anyway, about the meal actually, there's somewhere I'd rather go with you than just eat. Oh, sure, if it's somewhere you want to go, Crimea, I'm totally down. A meal, huh, he doesn't even have any money. What was he planning to do? I'll have to keep an eye on him. Make sure he doesn't recklessly throw himself into trouble again. Knowing how reckless he was, if left alone, he'd probably try to take on some random job in town to earn money. Since he hadn't officially joined the Knights yet, he could technically register and accept requests through the town's guild. But guild work could be shady. There were plenty of sketchy jobs with rewards that didn't match the risks. Or even dangerous setups meant to trap naive rookie adventurers. With how little he knew about the world, he'd be an easy mark for scammers. Now then, where should we go? Honestly, she didn't need any apology. But he probably wouldn't feel satisfied unless he did something. Boys are just like that sometimes, Hamo, I know. Then after training, would you go to the church with me? Sure. Wait, the church? You mean the church, where the gods are? If talking to Shen didn't work out, they would have no choice but to place the baby in a church-run orphanage. Considering the rumors, it might be a good idea to go see the place herself. And maybe, I might find out something about him too. Most churches had orphanages attached to them, judging from his build. He didn't seem to be a pure human, just like Erto. Maybe if she asked around, she could find out if a child with a similar appearance had ever come through. And possibly learn where he came from. Well, if it's somewhere you want to go, Crimea, then it's totally fine by me. Then it's a promise. She gently took the baby's tiny hand and gave a little wave toward him. In response, he turned his face away, almost shyly. But he was smiling. There it is. Commander, I found everything. Yoicho had come to the underground storeroom with Beale at his request. Honestly, he would have preferred to stay by Naru's side. Especially since she still hadn't woken up yet. But if it was something related to Naru, he couldn't just refuse. The things Yoicho had been tasked with retrieving were 3. A canteen, a set of discarded light armor, and a bag containing some cheese. In the relatively small underground storeroom, the search didn't take long. Apparently, Beale's magic hadn't reached down this far. And everything was recovered intact. Or rather, intact might have been a generous description. The canteen was torn and clumsily stitched back together. The light armor looked too battered to protect anything. And the cheese had turned into a rock-hard lump with a questionable color. Even without Beale's magic, everything was already in a pretty terrible state. Looks like I'm done here as well. Though, in this state, all I can really confirm is that they're dead. Beale had been examining the collapsed bodies in the underground storeroom. But they were so badly damaged that it was impossible to even tell their gender. When Beale lightly prodded one with his foot, what looked like an arm crumbled away with a dull collapse. This pile was the magnetic mage from earlier. According to what he said, it seems so. He had mentioned fighting a mage who could control magnetism. There weren't many practitioners of such a rare, non-offensive type of magic. It had to be the same mage who had gouged Yoicho's shoulder with black spikes. Thinking that just a few hours ago, he had been treating this now collapsed lump, left Yoicho with complicated feelings. In the end, no information could be gleaned from the half-destroyed bodies. No names, no affiliations, not even their country of origin. But Beale hadn't expected to learn anything from the scene to begin with. The moment he decided to unleash Sandstorm, he had already accepted that all traces would be wiped away. If anything, the fact that so much had remained at the scene was the real surprise. He managed to nullify my Sandstorm with Resist. It was true that when they first met, the Analyze spell Beale had cast at him had been nullified with Resist. But this time, the amount of magical power poured into Sandstorm was on an entirely different scale. To think it would be to this extent, is he beyond my control? If Beale's magic couldn't affect him, then it was likely that no mage within the entire kingdom of Sothiu could resist him either. In other words, the kingdom had no means of stopping him. An overwhelming magical power that far surpassed even Beel's. Nothing was more dangerous than a force too great to be controlled. And yet, at the same time, such power was irresistibly tempting. At this rate, the kingdom of Sathiu would inevitably be drawn into future conflicts. When that happened, he might very well become the kingdom's ultimate trump card. Besides, if my magic doesn't work on him, that also means he could stand with me on the battlefield. With his magic nullification as defense, and my wide area spells for offense. Depending on how we combine our strengths, the two of us might be able to take on an entire company. No, maybe even a full battalion. For Beel, having a partner he could entrust his back to. Someone who could fight alongside him without forcing him to hold back his magic. Was something he had long, desperately wished for. This training confirmed it. No matter what, I have to bring him into the Third Night Order. There are a few obstacles I'll have to overcome first, though. Good grief, what a headache. Huh, what was that, Commander? Yoicho, who had been struggling to push the bag of cheese up the ladder, paused and looked over at Beel. Nothing, just talking to myself. Pay it no mind, let's head back. Hoisting the battered light armor onto his shoulder, Beel began climbing the ladder, leaving the underground storeroom behind with Yoicho following after him. Hollow Diamond, wow, it's like a whole different world here. Ha, Commander Beel's magic is as outrageous as ever. By the time the sun was fully rising, the full knights of the Third Night Order summoned via magical communication by Crimea had arrived at the remnants of the settlement. Upon arrival, they took one look at the situation, immediately assessed the scene, and without wasting a moment, each of them began moving to carry out their assigned tasks. We're here now, so everything's going to be fine. Well, honestly, with the commander around, it was already pretty reassuring, though. Alright, let me take a look. Ares, who had just recently woken up, moved to begin treating Naru. I showed him Naru's wrist, which had been soaking in the canteen. Ares, I kept this cold for now. Can you do something about it? Please, try to fix her. At the time, I was still overestimating what magic could do. I believed that while regenerating a missing body part might be difficult, simply reattaching one should be possible with magic. But Ares's response wasn't what I had hoped for. I appreciate you bringing it, but this might be a little beyond saving, Ares said. What? Why? Was it because I stored it wrong? Or maybe too much time passed? Damn it, I screwed up. Maybe just tossing the wrist into the canteen wasn't good enough. I remember hearing that if you knock out a tooth, you're supposed to keep it in milk. Maybe I should have soaked the wrist in something too. Wait, calm down. Look, she already has a prosthetic arm attached, right? Sure enough, Naru's left hand was fitted with a prosthetic. In my world, prosthetics were usually detachable, but here, they were fully integrated with the body. At a glance, there were no visible seams at all. But there was definitely something odd about Naru's arm. It was strangely elongated, the fingers and palm looked unnaturally thin and long, giving the whole hand an eerie, witch-like appearance straight out of some ancient legend. Sure, with fingers that long, it might be handy for scratching your back. But I had a feeling Naru wouldn't appreciate that. Cutting off an arm multiple times in a short period puts way too much strain on the body. It might be unpleasant, but the best option is to let the prosthetic fully integrate first, and then perform another amputation later, Ares explained. So you're saying if we wait, we can still fix it? That's a relief. No, it won't go back to normal. By then, the original wrist will have started rotting. Huh, then what am I supposed to do? Well, you could, for example, use spatial temporal magic to freeze the wrist in time for preservation. Or have a high-quality prosthetic made and replace it. Both options are expensive, but realistically, getting a new prosthetic is probably the best bet. Wait, you can stop time with magic. That's a thing. Wait, spatial temporal magic sounds perfect. If it means she can get her original wrist back, then. No, seriously, it's impossible. Do you have any idea how much that would cost? Whatever you're imagining, it'd probably be at least 10 times more. Apparently, hiring a spatial temporal mage for preservation wasn't cheap. You'd need a catalyst to maintain the magic, a proper vessel, regular mana refills. And even for just half a day, the cost could easily hit 150,000 nils. Half a day costs 150,000, right? So if it takes about a month for the prosthetic to fully integrate with Naru's body, We're looking at, what, roughly 9 million nils. I didn't know exactly how much an average knight earned. But if even a full knight like Ares said it was expensive, then there was no way a trainee like Naru could afford it. On the other hand, a prosthetic depending on the creator might still be within reach financially. Since they had the original wrist as a reference, Ares explained that it would likely be possible to make one that closely resembled the real thing. High-quality prosthetics can be pricey, of course. But I think the kingdom will probably cover part of the cost. After all, it was technically an accident during training. I see. Sorry, Naru, I couldn't do anything to help. I bowed my head toward her as she lay there. Naru gave a faint shake of her head. It's okay. This happened because I wasn't being careful. Yoicho held Naru's right hand, then turned to Ares with a determined look in his eyes. He bowed deeply. Ares, I'll figure something out about the money. So please, could I ask you to handle the prosthetic? Oh, yeah, of course. I'll try to find a creator who can make her a really good one. Ares promised Yoicho that he'd also check with the other healers. Still, Yoicho had said he'd handle the money. But was he really going to be okay? Money, no matter what world you're in, you still need money. Times like this really made me feel how tough it was being unemployed and useless. Hollow Diamond, money, if it's you, big bro, I've got no problem lending you some. Jork offered without hesitation, but that wasn't the point. It's not that I wanted to borrow money. I wanted to earn it myself. I mean, let's be real. Right now, I've got no way to pay anyone back. What's this? Already talking about money? Typical of a materialist, Gustin muttered, sounding half amused and half exasperated. What do you mean, already? No, that's not it. We're talking about Naru's prosthetic. She's in our squad. I just want to chip in however I can. I hadn't been there when it happened, but it was still my job as the tank to protect the squad. I couldn't help feeling responsible. And honestly, in this world, where I had so few people I could call companions, that urge to help was way stronger than it had ever been in the one I came from. What, you're talking about Naru's prosthetic? Of course I'm in, big bro. At first I thought you were talking about taking Crimea out for dinner. Jork laughed. HMPH, so it's not that, Gustin muttered. It's not. I'll handle that myself, I snapped. Actually, Jork, your family runs a trading company, right? Just out of curiosity, do you know how much a prosthetic like this usually costs? If I remembered right, Ubin's prosthetic leg had looked like it was made of wood. But Naru was a girl, and unlike a leg that could be mostly hidden under pants, her wrist would always be in plain view. I wanted to get her something that looked as close to the real thing as possible. But how much would something like that even cost? It really depends. They range from simple cosmetic ones to high-end models with mana circuits that let them move freely. If it's just for normal daily use, I'd say you could get one for around 1.5 million nils. Jork scratched his head as he gave his answer. Apparently, the average monthly wage in this world ranged from 80,000 to 150,000 nils. In that context, even as a trainee, a knight earning 200,000 nils a month was probably considered pretty well paid. Price-wise, I guess it's kind of like buying a car back in my world. I wonder if they have loans here too. But if she's going to keep working as a knight, she'll need a proper prosthetic. One that lets her use magic too, Jork said, nodding to himself. A proper one, I wonder if it's possible to get an advance on her salary. I've never heard of anyone getting an advance when they haven't even officially joined yet, Gustin replied flatly. Oh, from Gustin's reaction, it sounds like salary advances do exist in this world. Apparently, it wasn't uncommon for the kingdom to offer temporary financial assistance to those who had passed the enlistment exam but couldn't afford equipment or travel expenses. So that means, since they said I might get in depending on how this training goes, maybe there's a chance I could get a salary advance too. Depending on the results, then it's all the more impossible. This is the morning of day 5 of training. If you don't reach the designated checkpoint within the next 2 days, you won't be evaluated at all. Give it up. Wait, Daisy G nated. Checkpoint. You don't even know what the training entails, do you? Gustin gave me a look of genuine disbelief. Oh, right. Crap, I'd been basking in this overwhelming sense of accomplishment. Like the whole rescue Naru operation had wrapped everything up. But the training itself wasn't even close to over. Wasn't the goal to capture the target location or whatever? And if this training decides whether I get to join or not, then if I don't get moving, I'm gonna stay unemployed. I can totally do it. Excuse me, do you even understand what you're saying? Yeah, I said I'll make it to the checkpoint in 2 days. I had no choice. There was no way I was letting go of my place in this world. A place with no benefits, no health coverage, where getting injured or sick meant getting tossed out on the spot. And yet, for someone like me with nowhere else to go, it was a place I couldn't afford to lose. To protect this place, and to secure better treatment, read, actual pay. I had no choice. I had to get into the night order. No matter what. But, even though I'd just shouted like I was ready to take on the world, when I actually thought about it, Naru's still out of commission. And Jorcy's way more drained than he looks. Yoicho may be patched up, but he's still injured. And me, my arms are toast from using that battle rope again for the first time in forever. The only one who's probably in decent shape is Helm, the healer. Yoicho said yesterday that the checkpoint was 2 days away, right? So 2 days left, and only Helm can still move properly. Wait, if I actually think this through, this might be totally impossible, huh? HMPH. Interesting. If you really do manage to reach the checkpoint in 2 days, I might just acknowledge you. Wait, what? You mean we seriously have to make it in 2 days? You're the one who said you could do it, remember? What a ridiculous man. Fine then, if you make it on time and don't tank your evaluation, I'll chip in for the prosthetic too. GGHH, I have no choice. I seriously have to pull this off. Huh, well, sure, the training technically continues even if members drop out. But wait, are you seriously planning to keep going? Crimea narrowed her eyes, glaring at me like she was accusing me of something. It was the kind of look that said, didn't I just tell you not to do anything reckless? But still, for Naru's sake, and for my own, I had no choice but to push forward. Crimea let out a long, heavy sigh. Even if you somehow manage to reach the checkpoint, you'll barely make it. Actually occupying it, that's probably impossible. Yeah, maybe I can't occupy it, but just getting there still counts for evaluation, right? She gestured for me to come closer. So I sat down right next to her on the ground, still cradling the baby in my arms. Listen carefully, okay? You probably don't know this yet, so let me explain. Here's what I learned from Crimea about how the training evaluation worked. Capture and maintain control of the checkpoint, 500 points. That was the main objective and the ultimate goal this time. But since it was about maintaining control, only one squad could achieve it. And obviously, whichever squad pulled it off would take the top evaluation. Next was reaching the checkpoint, 150 points. This was considered the bare minimum for the mission. The evaluation assumed all 5 squad members would arrive. For every missing member, you'd lose 30 points from your total. In other words, if only 3 members made it to the checkpoint, you'd get a 60-point penalty compared to a squad where all 5 reached it. And finally, there was the system this training was best known for. Number of tags collected times 5 points. It was technically individual scoring, but the points would also be added to the squad's total. Also, even if you lost your own tag, you wouldn't lose any points for it. Since this was a military training exercise, completing the assigned mission was considered the highest priority. No matter how many tags you collected, you could never surpass the points awarded to the squad that captured and held the checkpoint, even if that squad had collected 0 tags. That said, realistically speaking, it was almost impossible for a squad to have 0 tags. During the assault to capture the checkpoint and the defense afterward, they'd naturally end up collecting a decent number of tags. I see, so the evaluation's based on a point system. Apparently, there were other ways to earn points too. But Crimea hadn't gone into the details. Still, 150 points seemed to be the bare minimum. And falling below that would seriously tank your evaluation, leading to mandatory extra training. Basically, it was like flunking a test and getting stuck in remedial classes. In your case, you'll probably need to blow past the minimum line if you want any chance at all. Still, it kinda depends on how the whole fight with Pakala gets factored in. That counts toward the evaluation too. I'm not sure. This kind of situation's a first, Crimea said, tilting her head. I shouldn't count on anything uncertain. For now, securing the minimum 150 points has to be the goal. The evaluation drop Gustin had mentioned probably referred to falling below that line. Right now, our squad's got 19 tags. That's 95 points. At the very least, 2 of us need to make it to the checkpoint. Hollow Diamond, Big Bro was getting all fidgety. Looked like he was about to head for the checkpoint. Jork, are you going too? Yoicho asked, giving me a light pat on the shoulder. Of course, we're usually dead last, right? But this time we're actually doing crazy good for once. If we don't go for it now, we can't call ourselves heroes, can we? That said, Naru probably couldn't make it. Her magical power had been nearly drained dry. Forced out of her by that puppet creator bastard. Because of that, even when Ares used healing magic on her, he said her body wasn't responding properly. Her natural healing was barely kicking in. And Yoicho, he was definitely going to stay behind with her. Come on, Big Bro, and I'll rack up the squad's points, no problem. You just stay here with Naru and wait for us, alright? No, I'm coming too. There's nothing more I can do for Naru by staying here anyway. And honestly, I'd be too worried if it was just you two out there. Whoa, Yoicho's really coming with us. Leaving Naru behind. And Naru's gonna be okay with that. Haha, honestly. I'm after the support bonus. Right now, I just want to do whatever I can to help make getting her a better prosthetic possible. Oh, right, the support bonus. I think I heard something about that before. Not that it had anything to do with us. So I never really looked into it. Wait, what's that got to do with Naru? Whatever. If Yoicho's fired up about it, it's a hero's duty to cheer him on, right? Alright, then we better give it everything we've got. Hollow Diamond, we left Naru in Ares's care, and Crimea stayed behind with the baby, while the rest of us set out once more toward our target checkpoint. When I said we'd swing by the riverside where Helm was waiting first, Gustin mentioned he'd head back to where his own squadmates were stationed. So the 4 of us decided to travel together as far as the river. Still, the commander's magic was incredible, Hey, Big Bro, you saw it up close, right? What was it like? Up close. More like I took the full blast head on. HMPH, talk big. Jork and Yoicho laughed, like they thought I was just joking. But seriously, I wasn't. I actually took that thing straight to the face. Thanks to that, my favorite pair of underwear got completely wrecked. It was the best pair I'd brought over from my old world, too. Come to think of it, I never really got a chance to talk to Commander Beale. Not since we first met, anyway. Just a quick greeting, and that's it. Beale was probably just too busy to bother with someone like me. Unlike Kyle, he didn't show up at the mess hall to drink. Actually, maybe it was Kyle who was weird for showing up so often. Wasn't he supposed to be the vice commander? Did he even have a real job or something? I kinda wanted to at least say thank you to Commander Beale, since I'd heard he always kept an eye out for me whenever he could. Still, seeing him again for the first time in a while, he looked way more worn out than before. It's not because Vice Commander Kyle keeps slacking off, right? You're returning to the base now. May I ask what purpose that would serve? Amid the thick smoke rising from the stone hearth built along the murmuring riverbank, Helm's glasses gleamed with a cold light. Yoicho and Jork gladly agreed to come with me when I told them my goal was to reach the base. Honestly, I was ready to drag Jork along if I had to, but the fact that even Yoicho volunteered was a pleasant surprise. Still, the more people we have, the more options we get. A high evaluation can only help us in the long run. Or heading to the base, we went to pick up Helm. But despite being the one who had used the least amount of magic and stamina, his first words were that cold remark from earlier. Gustin, who had come this far with us, listened to our exchange in silence. Then, with a casual "do your best," he tossed me his name tag and walked off toward his own group. Wait, what? You're a nice guy, thanks, Gustin. I kept bowing repeatedly toward Gustin's back as he waved a hand without turning around. He might have teased me a lot along the way, but to hand over his name tag like that right at the end. Could he actually be the type who acts cold but secretly cares? I gotta say, Gustin's actually a pretty decent guy. That's 100 points right there. We still need at least 2 people to reach the base, though. Yoicho gave a sheepish laugh. Ahaha, I think that's probably from yesterday's duel. Jork chimed in with his usual grin. Big Bro beat Gustin, so of course he deserves it. Wait, what? So that was the name tag from the duel? Then I had every right to take it. I went and thanked him way too much. Damn it, More importantly, right now we've got Helm to deal with. Come on, Helm, what do you mean, what's the point? Isn't the whole point of this training to reach the base? The training period wasn't over yet, so I had just assumed Helm would come with us. Turned out I was dead wrong. A disappointing surprise, to say the least. Our objective is to occupy the base, you recall. I'm fairly certain I mentioned it at the beginning. That in order to take control, we must arrive before anyone else. It was true Helm had said early on that, with our limited offensive options, we'd have to make do by holding a defensive position. 2 days left, barely enough time to reach the base, if that. And just look at our current state. What exactly are we expected to do like this? With Naru gone, Jork was effectively our only attacker. I couldn't really blame Helm for being reluctant to come up with a plan. Even the greatest strategist would grimace if told to draft a surefire strategy with a team this limited. Yoicho offered a light chuckle. Ahaha, that's true. But even just reaching the base earns us some points, right? So it's not completely pointless, is it? Simply arriving at the base won't improve our ranking by much. It's expected. At best, we move from last place to near the bottom. I see no reason to waste our time, energy, and most of all my intellect on something so trivial. Regardless, he added, as he scattered a generous handful of his homemade spices over the fish they'd been smoking. It's still part of the supplementary training. Man, that smells amazing. Honestly, I can't focus on Helm and Yoicho's conversation at all. Hurry up and finish already. The smoked fish Helm was making had this addictive kick from his spices. And to top it off, it even came with a side effect of restoring magic. Even Gustin, who probably eats fancy stuff all the time, had been stuffing his face with it like crazy. You could say this smoked fish had noble approval. Not surprising, considering it was made by a noble himself. Ah, my worn-out muscles are screaming for protein. Gulp, I turned to see Jork beside me, swallowing hard. He'd burned through a lot of magic during recon attacks, and now he was eyeing the smoked fish like it had his name on it. As if to say, I get dibs. But I'm running on fumes too, and my muscles need that protein boost just as badly. Sorry, Jork, I'm not backing down, but it's different this time, right? I mean, I heard there's a bunch of early retirements already. Just like Yoicho said, the usual behavior of the trainees heading straight for the base seemed oddly different this time. And the reason, it was because of that bet. The one Ubin had proposed. Rather than heading straight to the base, many squads prioritized the bet and began searching for me first. As a result, squads ended up clashing with others scouting the same routes. And multiple teams were forced to retire early during the first phase of the training. I overheard some full-fledged knights whispering, "This training session's gotten out of hand. What the hell is going on?" So I'm pretty sure it's true. So you're saying that just reaching the base might earn us a decent rank. And we could avoid that exhausting, pointless extra training altogether. Helm began chewing his thumbnail in thought. Yoicho followed up immediately, pressing the advantage. And if we only have a few days left, that means the other squads are probably already near the base. So there's a low chance we'll run into anyone on the way. If we can avoid combat, I think even our current team could make it without too much trouble. Yeah, that's right, Helm. And this time, we've got a bunch of name tags too. So let's hurry up and eat already, come on. Hey, Jork. You already stuffed yourself yesterday, so how about letting me have it today? There wasn't much smoked fish to go around. Probably because they hadn't caught many this time. If Naru had been with them like before, they could have used lightning for fishing. But with only Helm this time, it couldn't be helped. What are you talking about, bro? Yesterday's share and today's are totally separate. What did you just say? Aren't I your big bro? Don't you know you're supposed to let your dear older brother have his share? You're the one who should be giving it up for your adorable little bro. Alright then, I get 5 and you get 3. What? No way. It's gotta be 4 and 4. Come on, you are insufferable. This stopped being relevant several lines ago. Good grief, fine, I'll indulge your selfishness this time. But if things don't go well, don't you dare blame me, understood? Relieved that they had successfully convinced Helm, Yoicho let out a quiet sigh of relief. With his shoulder still not fully healed, he had really hoped their healer would come along. And besides, if Helm's with us, I can push myself a little harder. He was prepared to risk injury if it was for Naru. But if it left him unable to move afterward, it would defeat the whole purpose. Whether or not a healer was present made all the difference in where that line the limit could be drawn. Just earlier, Gustin had promised to help fund a prosthetic arm. On the condition that they reached the base and didn't drop in the rankings. Coming from a noble like Gustin, that kind of support could be a big deal. Because, fundamentally, nobles are all about appearances. There was no way someone from House Balad would offer anything cheap or half-hearted. The amount of support itself would be a statement of the family's prestige. As long as we reach the base safely, our ranking shouldn't drop. And thanks to the name tags, we don't even all need to make it there. There was also the support fund system within the order. A program where the kingdom provided financial aid to promising members looking to further develop their abilities. If handled correctly, that could cover the cost of a better prosthetic for Naru. One that would allow her to use magic more easily. But if their squad's evaluation was too low, there'd be no chance of that happening. It was for that reason, and for Naru that Yoicho, usually so quiet and reserved, had been so desperate to persuade Helm. Hollow Diamond. Helm was hunched over, groaning as he traced something into the dirt. Likely working out a plan for reaching the base. After a while, he seemed to come to a conclusion, raised his head, and called everyone over. Listen carefully. We'll use Jorcy's scouting magic to avoid enemy squads along the way. And aim for the target via the shortest possible route. Yeah, this kind of situation really shows how useful Jorcy's bird's eye view can be. Being able to understand the terrain is highly advantageous. Honestly, if I had known about his scouting magic from the start, we could have produced far better results up until now. Haha, well, he didn't realize it himself, so I guess we can't blame him. Jorcy's scouting magic, Yoicho's versatile use of life magic, Helm's ability to devise strategies based on a deep understanding of each member's strengths. And Naru, ironically, thanks to being controlled by that puppet creator, had awakened a new lightning spell, Emperor of Thunder. By all accounts, this was the squad that had grown the most during the exercise. As long as they produced results, no one would dare call them failures again, not after gaining this much real combat experience. You two over there, the smoked fish won't be ready for a while. It needs to be slow smoked for the proper aroma and sheen. Helm looked up with an exasperated sigh. Clearly, the two in question hadn't listened to a word of his plan. MMGH, Gonzea Huogh Anagrau Nu. It's smoked enough by now, don't you think? Haga. Yeah, I'm with you on that, bro. Ah, why are you already eating it? Both of you put that smoked fish down right this instant. This is an absolute disaster. Hollow Diamond, all right, time to move. This path's a no-go. I see 3 guys up ahead. Then let's circle around, assuming their scouting range is about 1 kilometer. Jork, give me the terrain data for this route. We'd all had some of Helm's special smoked fish. But Jork still wasn't fully recovered. To conserve his magic, we weren't using his scouting spell constantly. Just once every 2 hours. Jork was in charge of scouting, terrain checks. And now, he was also our squad's only attacker. In other words, he held the most critical position of all. It's no exaggeration to say that our survival depended on his magic. Of course we had to conserve it. Right now, the priority is letting Jork recover his magic. If things go south, I'm sending you charging straight into the enemy lines. That's what Helm told me, just after I'd eaten 5 whole smoked fish. How cruel. Sure, I knew how important it was to let Jork recover his magic. But hey, my muscles were at their limit too. If I didn't get some solid protein in me right then, all this hard-earned USCLE would have started wasting away. You get it, right? Then let's cross that river. No, maybe we should just follow it downstream all the way. Nah, there's a waterfall up ahead. Probably best not to risk it. We couldn't take the absolute shortest route, but factoring in how much time a fight would cost us, detouring was faster and a lot safer. Still, I was surprised by how many squads were out here. Way more than I'd expected. So the other squads are still hanging around, huh? I shook my head with a sigh at how different reality was from what I'd expected. Yoicho just shrugged and said, can't be helped. They've probably given up on the base. But they're still hoping to catch you. Guess they've let go of trying to rank up. But they still want that booze. Man, a world with no entertainment really sucks. But still, I've gotten used to it by now, but being shirtless with just a shield, I honestly can't tell if that looks strong or just ridiculous. The light armor Yoicho brought me was so torn up. It wasn't good for protection. Heck, it wouldn't even work as proper weight for training. So I left it with Ares. Right now, I've got a cape wrapped around my waist. And a shield strapped to my back. The image, a warrior of ancient Greece. A true Spartan, not that anyone here knows what Sparta is. To them, I probably just look like some half-naked weirdo. Still pretty badass, right? Well, I suppose it could work for intimidation. Helm said it with a cold stare. Right, see, you get it, Helm my man. Charging in with this ripped, half-naked body. Most people would freeze on the spot. Some might even burst into tears. Yoicho chuckled. Haha, yeah, if a big half-naked guy came charging at me, I'd run for it right away. Jork followed up with a big grin. That's our big bro. I mean, anyone would panic if some weirdo came charging at them. Phew, haha, see, it's intimidating, right? Wait, who the hell are you calling a weirdo? You said that's our big bro. So I thought you were complimenting me. Are you still mad about the smoked fish? But you know, that look might actually work in our favor. We might even be able to take the base with it. Yoicho suddenly said something like that. And I tilted my head in confusion. What kind of base can you take looking like this? Don't tell me it's hidden in the women's bath or something. If I charged into the women's bath looking like this, sure, they'd probably scream and scatter. Or maybe just maybe they'd come flocking instead. Wow, those muscles, can I touch them? Hey, no fair, me too, me too. I imagined the whole scene like something out of a nightclub fantasy. And couldn't help grinning to myself. I don't know what exactly you're imagining. But I think it's within the realm of possibility. Wait, seriously, the base might actually be in the bath. Are you actually stupid? Haha, yeah, I was just kidding. There's this squad that always ranks near the top in combat drills. I'm guessing they're the ones holed up at the base this time too. And what does that have to do with screaming girls in a bath? Seriously, let go of the whole bath thing already. The leader of that squad, Iris Orbage, is a battle priestess. So she's a girl. Wait, are you telling me I'm supposed to intimidate her like this? Wearing nothing but a cape. Front and left, two squads are crossing the moat and closing in. We strike before they finish the encirclement. From the watchtower, a sturdy-looking young man called down in a commanding voice. I got the left side. That cool with you, Lady Iris? The moment he heard that, a lively-looking boy with short hair sprang into action. He threw on the jacket draped over his chair, shouted back, and strode confidently out the door on his own. Then, Lyak, please take the front. Got it. Which squad are we dealing with? That's Heath's group, huh? Yeah, I can handle them on my own. Then maybe I should go help out John, huh? No, Theo. I have a few things I'd like you to take care of here. So wait just a little longer for me, all right. The structure, which included a small lighthouse-style watchtower, was the objective base for this exercise. Originally built as a border patrol relay station, the facility was modest, only large enough to house 7 or 8 people. But it featured a roofed watchtower offering a full 360-degree view of the surroundings. A compact lodging directly connected to the tower. And, about 330 feet beyond that, a deep moat encircling the area to keep out wild beasts. There was only one bridge across the moat, located at the front of the lodging. And it was just wide enough for a single carriage to pass. To take the base, the first obstacle was crossing the moat. But this was a fantasy world, after all. Some would fill the moat with earth, while others would create bridges of ice. Each squad used their own unique magic to find a way onto the grounds. On the final day of the exercise, squads began pouring in one after another toward the target base. Even if defense held the advantage, it took considerable skill to fend off a constant stream of attackers. In fact, the squad that had initially reached and occupied the base was quickly overpowered and replaced by the incoming team led by Lady Iris. Front, incoming ice spikes, a whole damn swarm of them. From the watchtower, Zarbia, the light magic user, shouted down to Lyak, who was rolling his shoulders below in preparation. Lyak glanced up at the sky. Sure enough, countless ice spikes were hurtling toward them, glistening as they caught the sunlight. Huh, now that's the ice general for you, not holding anything back, huh? Heath's squad was composed entirely of ice mages, including a healer, and was led by Heath himself, nicknamed the Ice General, who was known not just for his wide array of ice spells, but also for his keen tactical mind. Too bad. Would have worked great if I wasn't the one standing here. Stationed at the front, Lyak slowly raised both hands, facing down the oncoming barrage of ice spikes. Motion break. In an instant, the ice spikes lost their momentum, their speed dropping sharply in midair. Without missing a beat, Lyak unleashed his next spell. Flame Pillar. With a roar, towering columns of fire erupted from the ground, piercing through the weakened barrage of ice. Had the ice spikes retained their original speed, they might have pierced through the flames and reached Lyak. But with their momentum drastically reduced by motion break, they couldn't hold up. The fire scorched them thoroughly, melting the spikes midair and filling the area with thick clouds of steam. Maybe I overdid it a bit. The heat and rising steam made him cough. It felt like he'd stepped into a sauna. Lyak, don't let your guard down yet. You're up against Heath, after all. I see, so this isn't over yet, huh? Lady Iris's voice rang out clear and composed, like the chime of a silver bell, and Lyak immediately sharpened his focus, his expression tightening. Theo, raise an earth wall over there. And Lyak, aim your fireball at the top of it. Start 30 seconds from now. You got it. Earth wall, right there, huh? The short boy called. Theo rushed toward the same area where the ice spikes had flown in earlier, and began raising a wall of earth. But just as the wall was starting to form, a loud crackling sound rang out. The entire ground suddenly froze over. Whoa, they refroze the melted ice. A sharp scraping noise echoed from beyond the earth wall, several figures sliding in from the other side. The temperature dropped in an instant, and the lingering steam in the air shimmered, as it transformed into a cloud of diamond dust, scattering the light in 1,000 directions. Hey, Lyak, you're counting, right? Ah, crap, right. 3, 2, 1 fireball. Without hesitation, Lyak launched his spell straight into the dazzling white haze. Even though he couldn't see a thing, there wasn't the slightest doubt in his actions. A clear sign of the deep trust shared within their squad. Boom, the fireball exploded right as the enemy squad members leapt onto the earth wall. Gwa, with a heavy thud, 3 of them were slammed into the ground. Heath's surprise attack had failed, so all those ice spikes were just to blind us and lay a slick runway. Didn't think you'd go for a straight-up charge. A brilliant plan, closing the distance in an instant by sliding across the ice. But once a wall pops up in front of you, you have no choice but to jump, right? And that little distraction of yours worked out perfectly for me, too. Standing over Heath, who lay face down on the ground, Lady Iris let out a quiet laugh, covering her mouth with one delicate hand. Her long silver hair, tied neatly behind her head, swayed gently with the breeze. Lady Iris, we're done over here too, praise me already. A short-haired boy came stomping over with loud, eager steps. It seemed the squad that had attacked from the left had been driven off by him. My, John, what a good boy you are. Standing on her toes, the girl gave the spiky-haired boy an exaggerated pat on the head. The scene resembled nothing so much as a proud owner praising a large dog for retrieving a ball. Still on the ground, Heath looked up at Iris with a crooked grin. Did you really think that was the end of my plan? Even a battle priestess's foresight has its limits, huh? Oh, are you referring to the group approaching from the rear? Ah, so that's why there were fewer enemies than expected. John clapped his hands in realization, nodding to himself. Iris turned to him with a sigh. Important reports like that, please make sure to tell us next time, won't you? That must be the group I blocked with the earth wall earlier, right, Lady Iris? What, you were stalling them? Sorry to say, those guys. I already crushed them. Zarbia casually peeked down from the watchtower, his voice calm as he addressed Heath. They were wandering in circles inside Theo's earth maze, so I took care of them from above with light arrow. So even someone as proud as you was willing to team up with another squad just to beat us. How desperate were you? Too bad. I saw through it all from the start. Without waiting for a response, Iris turned sharply on her heel. Her silver hair swayed lightly, as if waving at Heath, who could only grit his teeth in frustration. That's the top squad. Now my stomach's acting up. It was the second day since we left the riverside camp. By fully utilizing Jorcy's scouting magic, we'd managed a stealthy march that avoided every enemy squad along the way. Now, at last, we'd reached a vantage point overlooking the target base. We crossed rivers, climbed down cliffs, and pushed through thick underbrush. It wasn't easy trekking through all that unmarked terrain. But honestly, things went smoother than expected. Mostly because Naru wasn't with us this time. Not that I'm saying she was a burden or anything. But hey, fact is, we got here ahead of schedule. She's got short legs, you know. So yeah, right now we're taking a break while secretly watching how the squads ahead of us are trying to take the base. And man, even with the defenders having the advantage, this whole thing looks way tougher than I expected. That girl Iris, the squad leader. No matter how much I showed off my muscular physique, she didn't seem like the type to scream and run away. If anything, she looked more like the kind who'd aim a solid kick right where it hurts. Yoicho, you liar. Huh, did you say something? No, nothing. Well, it's not like I actually believed we'd take the base that easily with a plan like that. If I'm gonna get people screaming, I'd rather it be cheers than shrieks. Rough luck, big bro. Shut up, it's not like I was looking forward to it or anything. Anyway, how the hell are we supposed to take that thing? Watching the whole thing unfold, it was clear that Heath's strategy wasn't actually that bad. First, 3 mages launched a massive volley of ice spikes at the same time, drawing attention to the front. They were probably aiming to pull off a diversion just like the one we used when we rescued Naru. But the scale was completely different. With that many ice spikes, I wouldn't be able to block the attack like I did with Earth Wall. Its coverage is too narrow for someone like me. There's no way I could stop it. Some of the squad members would definitely go down. But the Iris squad was different. As if they had predicted the incoming ice attack, they had stationed their fire mage right at the front. A massive pillar of flame shot up toward the sky, melting the ice spikes one after another. An entire wide area spell from 3 mages, neutralized by a single blast of fire. But it seemed Heath had accounted for that. He didn't so much as flinch and calmly moved on to the next phase of his plan. Look, he's refreezing the melted ice using a frost domain. That's how he created the ice path. And not just that. It seems he's also freezing the surrounding mist to obscure visibility. So that sparkly stuff, that's what it is. That does look blinding. The 3 mages raced down the newly formed ice path, sliding swiftly toward the building with the watchtower. But at some point, an earth wall had been placed right at the end of their route. It seems their smokescreen worked against them. Yeah, with that visibility and speed, that wall probably looked like it came out of nowhere. When you suddenly run into an obstacle in the fog, you've only got 2 choices: stop or dodge. But at that speed, there's no way they could have stopped. Their only option was to go airborne. Just as we expected, all 3 of them leapt without slowing down. They jumped just like I thought. They're gonna crash straight into the building. The height of that earth wall is perfectly calculated. Any lower, and they'd predict a fire mage waiting inside. Any higher, and they probably would have given up on jumping altogether. Boom, a pinpoint strike while they were in midair with nowhere to run. Even from Iris's side, there's no way they could have seen them. And yet the timing was perfect. There's no dodging that. All 3 of them hit the ground, hard. Damn, it's so close. But what made Heath impressive was that he was pulling off the same kind of maneuver in a completely different spot at the same time. It was hard to see from our angle, but there was another battle unfolding on the left side of the building. That looks like 2 squads teaming up to take the base. Huh, I guess that's allowed. What are you talking about, big bro? Didn't it already happen to us? Remember? Oh right. On the first day, we got hit by both Balt and Rossi at the same time. Can 2 squads even occupy the base at the same time? Rule-wise, only 1 squad can actually claim it. They're probably planning to take down the Iris squad first. Then settle it between themselves in a duel. So unless they do something like that, they don't stand a chance against Iris squad. A 2-front assault to split their defense, hoping one side will break through. But still, they can't get through even with that. No, the real objective is probably a rear infiltration. Wait, rear? You mean that whole 2-squad attack was just a diversion? Ah, that explains the weird headcount. No way Heath's team lost 2 people before even getting here. But it looked like even their real plan had failed. After a volley of light arrows rained down from the watchtower, all sounds of battle suddenly stopped. It seems it's over. Look, the Judge Knight is heading over now. Damn, they really are strong. No wonder they're always at the top. Still, that Heath guy, he was close. It was just bad luck that he ended up facing a fire mage with his ice magic. If it had been a different matchup, you don't actually think that was just a coincidence, do you? Helm adjusted his slipping glasses as he spoke to me. Huh, well, yeah, of course. You can't see anything past that moat until you cross it. Wait, bird's eye view. The distance from the moat to the watchtower at the center of the base was about 110 yards. And since the moat was dug into the ground with high banks of piled up dirt on the edges, you couldn't see ahead without getting over it. But if they had scouting magic like Jorce's hold on shore, they could locate the enemy. But would that really tell them what element the target uses? Without that info, there's no way they could have sent in a counter-element mage so precisely. Yoicho, clearly shaken by the clash between these top-tier squads, turned to me and said with a trembling voice. They say Iris the battle priestess has the eye of foresight. She can see the future. The future. Wait, is that even allowed? So here's the end of story. Thanks for watching all the parts and please don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more such contents.